We are live.
Good morning, everyone. This meeting will now come to order. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Durham Historic Preservation Commission on this 5th day of October 2021. My name is Matt Bouchard, and I currently serve as chair of the commission. The commission is a quasi-judicial board of record, and as such, all testimony will be recorded. Under this procedure, our meeting today will also be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. The proceedings of this board are governed by the zoning laws as recorded. As such, please note the steps we have taken to ensure that each party's due process rights are protected as we proceed using this remote platform. First, today's meeting will be conducted in accordance with the statutes enacted in Session Law 2020-3 and codified North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 166A, Section 19.24, which allows for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during declarations of emergency. Second, each applicant on today's agenda was notified before being placed on the agenda that this meeting would be conducted using a remote electronic platform. Every applicant on today's agenda has consented to the board conducting the evidentiary hearing on their request using this remote platform. We will also confirm today at the start of each evidentiary hearing that the participants in the evidentiary hearing consent to the matter proceeding in this remote platform. If there is any objection to a matter proceeding in this remote platform, the case will be continued. Third, notice of this meeting was provided to the applicants and to the public in multiple ways, including signage posted on site, notification letters mailed to all adjacent property owners, informing recipients regarding this remote platform, and a general announcement via our website, informing the public of the same. The notices for today's meeting advise the public on how to access the remote meeting as the meeting occurs. Individuals wishing to participate in today's evidentiary hearings were required to register prior to the meeting. Information about this registration requirement, along with information about how to sign up to participate, was included in the mailed notice letters sent to each adjacent property owner. This information was also included on the board's website. The public was advised to contact the city immediately in case of objection to the evidentiary hearing or to the remote meeting platform. 2 cases will be proceeding today in which the city has been contacted by an individual with an objection to the case. All individuals participating in today's evidentiary hearings were also required to submit a copy of any presentation, document, exhibit, or other material they wish to submit at the evidentiary hearing prior to today's meeting. All materials that the city received from the participants in today's cases, as well as a copy of city staff's presentations and documents, were posted online prior to this meeting. The agenda and all materials to be discussed today may be viewed at any time during today's meeting by visiting the web link for today's agenda via Durham's Agenda Center. Finally, all individuals who registered to participate in an evidentiary hearing on today's agenda, as well as all city staff participants, were emailed a witness oath and consent to a remote hearing form prior to today's meeting. Any individual planning to testify or submit evidence in an evidentiary hearing was notified that they must sign the oath prior to today's meeting. We will also reaffirm everyone's oath on the record at today's meeting. Are there any members of this board that would have any conflicts of interest with regard to the cases before us today?
Matt, I can't be on the last case, the 501 Washington one. I need to recuse myself since Stuart is involved in that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hellerman. Anybody else? Are there any members of this board who have a request for an early dismissal today? Okay, hearing none, as chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, I'd like to remind everyone that our quasi-judicial hearings function similar to a court proceeding. Staff will first present an overview of each case, and then the applicant will have an opportunity to present their evidence. Opponents, if there are any, may then present their evidence, and the applicant may then present a rebuttal. Board members will refrain from questions or comments until each speaker has completed his or her presentation. Testimony should consist of facts each witness knows directly, not hearsay. Evidence already presented need not be repeated. All witnesses who have signed up in advance will be given the opportunity to speak, and their testimony will be recorded. The board will vote on each case after the presentation of all evidence, pro and con, concerning that case. All decisions of this board are subject to appeal to the Board of Adjustment and then to the Durham County Superior Court. Clerk Holmes, welcome. If you could please take the attendance of the commissioners who are here today.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Here.
Commissioner Dan,
Here.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Here.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Here.
Vice Chair Goolsby, Commissioner Hamilton,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kreger,
Here.
Commissioner Waiters.
Commissioner Waiters here.
Good morning, everyone. You've been forwarded an agenda to today's meeting. Would any of the commissioners or any members of city staff like to recommend any adjustments to today's agenda?
No adjustments on the part of staff.
Thank you, Carla. Anybody else? Commissioners, you've also been provided draft minutes for our last commission meeting held on this same remote platform on September 7, 2021. Does anyone have any adjustments to the draft minutes they would like to recommend? Hearing no comments, may I have a motion to approve last month's minutes?
Commissioner Hamilton, so moved.
Second, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, commissioners. Clerk Holmes, if we could have a roll call vote, please, for approval of the minutes.
Sorry about that. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner Dan,
I would abstain. I'm not sure we're allowed, but I wasn't here for the last meeting.
okay. All right, Commissioner DeBerry, Commissioner Fieselman,
I also was not here for the last meeting.
all right. Commissioner Hamilton,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Kreger,
I was absent.
Commissioner Waiters,
Commissioner Waiters approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Commissioner DeBerry, you're on mute.
Approved.
Thank you all very much. What was
Motion
the
passes
tally,
5 to
Clerk
0.
Holmes? I spoke-
It passes 5 to 0.
I'm sorry, I spoke over you. Thank you so much.
You're fine.
And if we could go back to you, Clerk Holmes, to swear in all city staff that will be presenting today's cases.
All right. Do you, members of staff, swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's cases is the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Carla Rosenberg, I do.
Great.
All right.
I believe we are prepared to begin with our first case, seeking a certificate for appropriateness. This is case COA 210063 1509 Maryland Avenue addition. Chris, if you could bring in the attendees for that hearing.
Just
Good
waiting
morning.
on David Parker to come in, and we have John Black here as well.
Great. Chris, did you say that Mr. Parker's on? Okay, here he comes.
This should be everybody.
Great. Welcome, Mr. Parker and Mr. Black. I will first ask if there are any commissioners who have a conflict of interest in hearing this case. Hearing none, let's proceed with the swearing in of Mr. Black and Mr. Parker in that order. Clerk Holmes.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth, by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
I, John Black, do swear.
David Parker, I do.
And Mr. Black and Mr. Parker, could I please have each of you confirm on the record in that order that you consent to this hearing proceeding using this electronic remote platform?
John Black, I consent.
David Parker, I consent.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. We may now proceed with the staff summary.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 21-00063, 1509 Maryland Avenue, addition. The applicant is Riverbank Construction, represented by John Black. The owners are Kyle and Samar Simmons. It's located on the west side of Maryland Avenue between Sprunt Avenue and Pershing Street. Zoned residential, suburban 8, and it's a non-contributing structure in the Watts-Hillendale Historic District. So the applicant is proposing to construct a one-story rear addition at the rear side of the existing two-story structure. I'd like to introduce the staff report into the record and invite Mr. Black to share his case.
Thank you. Carla, are you going to be operating the, yes. Would you mind going to the site plan?
Slow as mud this morning. I apologize. I'm just gonna do it.
Well, as she's getting there, I can start by saying that we worked on this house in 2019. This was a new construction project. So now is currently a two-story single-family home, non-contributing to the neighborhood as it is brand new. And the clients and homeowners have contacted us about adding an addition onto the home, given all of the new demands on their lives from COVID restrictions and the change in working. So as you can see there, and that's the foundation plan. Carla, if you go up one page to the first page, you'll see on the site plan, a small one there, that we're proposing this addition towards the rear of the project, but also on the south side. And this location was chosen for a couple of reasons. One being that there already exists a rear porch, which provides living space and dining space for the homeowner to use and views to the backyard. So rather than interrupting any of that, we have shifted the addition down towards the side. So it's still towards the rear, but it's on the side, on the south side where the lot has plenty of room still. You see on the north side, the driveway enters the site at that point, and that's the main access point to the backyard. So we're trying to keep all of that unobstructed. Also, Carla, if you'll go to the photos, and I believe it's the last photo. You'll see from the street, we've done our best to do this in an inconspicuous way, the most inconspicuous place from the street. That south side of the lot has a lot of foliage and trees. We planted a new maple tree on that side in the front yard when we built the house. Keep going. That's the driveway side. There you go. So this is the side of the house where the addition is proposed. We're essentially closing in that back porch where the pergola is. And the twin window there at the back that you see in this picture would be removed. And that would be reused on the front elevation of the addition. For the addition, the materials, we've chosen all of the same materials that we used on the house when we built it. So again, same windows, these black clad wood windows. Those double hungs again would be facing the street. There'd be vertical board and batten siding, the same metal roofing that's on the existing house now. And the slope of the shed roof that's proposed on the structure matches the slope of these shed roofs that already exist on the house. So you see there's not much that would change in terms of the appearance of the overall structure. We're simply adding about 430 square feet. It's 2 small rooms on the back of this house. So the homeowners can have an office and gym area. So with that, are there any questions or comments about what is proposed?
Thank you, Mr. Black. Do we have any questions for, well, I guess we should ask Mr. Parker if he has anything to add to Mr. Black before we ask any questions of the applicant.
Thank you, David Parker here. Not necessarily, I'm just here to participate and help as needed.
Great.
And obviously speaking out in favor of the project.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Black or Mr. Parker from any of the commissioners? I'm scanning for raised hands. I do not see any. If there are no commissioner questions, is there anyone else who is present who would like to speak for or against this case? Seeing and hearing from none, we will close the public hearing and discuss the case amongst commissioners. Is there anyone who would like to begin the discussion? I will note my own personal observation that this appears to be a relatively non-controversial application. And I am prepared to approve it. Is there anyone who would like to speak about any concerns they might have about the proposal? Hearing none, may we have a staff recommendation?
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department staff would recommend approval of the application.
Thank you very much, Carla. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I am. Oh, but John.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll second you.
Deal. Okay, here's the motion. The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in case COA 2100063 1509 Maryland Avenue addition, the applicant is proposing an addition to a non-contributing structure. The addition will measure approximately 27 feet by 14.5 feet and will be located towards the rear of the existing structure along the south side elevation. The addition will be constructed using a brick veneer foundation, vertical cementitious fiberboard siding, fiberglass clad wood siding, wood windows, and a standing seam metal roof. One pair of 2/2 windows will be removed from the south side elevation and relocated to the street facing wall of the addition. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report. And the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 2100063 1509 Maryland Avenue addition with the following conditions. 1, the improvements shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at this commission hearing and attached to the COA. 2, the improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies. The applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals related to building construction, site work, and work in the right of way. And 3, a compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners Fieselman and Diane. If we could have a roll call vote, please, Clerk Holmes.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner Dayan,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson, I think you're on mute, Commissioner Johnson.
Approved.
All right. Commissioner Kreger,
Approved.
Commissioner Waiters.
Approved.
Motion passes 8-0.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time today. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
All right. We are prepared to move on now to our next case on the agenda. It is case COA 21-00064, 111 Wall Street, addition, modifications, new construction of accessory structure, and site work. It looks like we have a number of folks speaking for and one person speaking opposed. Chris, do we have everybody in?
Chair Bouchard, I only see one individual attending today. That's Mr. Mark Barron.
Okay.
We had 3 other individuals listed, but I do not see them. They were here, but I don't see them anymore. So if they come in, I'll try to bring them in. Or if you are here for case COA 21-00064, please raise your hand now so that we may bring you in. Thank you.
Chris, I know that Mr. Miller was here earlier. Is he also not here?
He was here, yes, but I don't see him on the attendee list. I'm not sure if he by chance dropped off.
Okay.
But if I see him come in, oh, and I think both of our applicants are on one screen here, so there was one of our missing ones.
Like James and Jody Wart have just joined us.
Yes. So if I see Mr. Miller, I'll try to bring him in.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and proceed with the swearing in of the applicant representatives who are here. Let's start with Mr. Barron and then go with Jody and James Wirt. Clerk Holmes, if you could go ahead and swear in our witnesses.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Yes.
All right.
We could also have the oath from James and Jody Wirt.
Jody Wirt, yes.
And James Wirt, yes.
And if we could have each of you confirm on the record that you consent to this hearing proceeding using this electronic virtual platform.
Jody Wirt, yes, I consent.
James Wirt, I consent. Mark Barron, I consent.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much. The Wirts have put a comment in the chat indicating that the address is 1111 Wall Street as opposed to 111. I read it as it's indicated on the agenda, so my apologies. If we could now proceed with the staff summary.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 21-00064, 1111 Wall Street, addition, modifications, new construction of accessory structure, and site work. The applicant is Mark Barron. The owners, Jody Wirt and Brandon Wirt. Located on the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Wall Street and Alston Avenue, zoned residential suburban 8, a contributing structure to the Golden Belt Historic District. And so the applicant is proposing to remove some rear porches, replace damaged windows with patio doors, restore some original, a second door opening, as this was a duplex originally, and install 2 new wood front doors, and these changes to the primary structure. And then in addition, they are proposing a new accessory structure to be used as an ADU, and also to relocate some accessory structures on the site. I'd like to introduce the staff report into the record and invite Mr. Barron to present his case.
First of all, my monitor shows me off to the side. Am I centered in the screen? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, commissioners. I'm Mark Barron, the architect for this project. Will I be able to share my screen?
No, but you can let me know which page you would like me to go to in the staff report.
Okay, one of the first images I'll ask for is the existing east elevation showing from Alston. Yeah, so basically the situation out at this house is that it's been unoccupied for close to 2 years now, and it's been broken into and vandalized several times. The owners have put a lot of effort into preventing this from happening, so both they and their neighbors will be, well, I guess except for one neighbor or whoever the opposition is, most people are going to be happy to have this house be occupied again, and the owners are eager to get that done. Basically, we're not changing so much functionally inside the house. Most of the changes will be seen from the outside. Right now, there are 2 original back porches that were with shed roofs that were enclosed at some point and created a very tight, dysfunctional bathroom and laundry area that's very awkward and hard to get around. So we're proposing to take those 2 enclosed porches down, remove them, and replace it with an addition that largely has the same functionality: bathroom, laundry, and mudroom entry on the back. We're also well, actually, it'd be a good time to bring that picture up, Carla, of the east elevation. I think it's in the application. It's one of the, I'm not sure it's seen on this document, but in the pictures, pretty sure it's not in this document. It's in the.
Okay, these are the pictures that were submitted. There may be another section of pictures.
Yeah, this is a document that I will be referencing later. This is the one showing the views from pedestrian vantage points, but there's the application, the narrative, and all the pictures at the end of the application attachments. Yeah.
Okay. They're all application materials and
yeah. I had a plan to share my screen, so sorry about that. And it's actually a photograph, but it's okay. We can reference what you just had. Go down.
Okay.
Go towards the later pages. I'm sorry. I'm just going to describe it. Let's forget about it. So one of the enclosed porches from the east side. So the register describes this house as a AAA roof structure. So it's got very dominant gable ends, and one of them that has the enclosed porch. The way that they enclose the porch is in plane with the side of one of these dominant gable ends. Right there, you can see it right there. It's in plane and it masks the original form of one of these dominant gables that come out because it's in plane. So when we remove that enclosed porch over there, which is the laundry room, when we bring back our addition, it will be set back. So it will bring that defining gable forward again. So that'll be an improvement. And the screen porch we're proposing is coming off of that same gable, and it's set down far enough to still accentuate that strong gable of the house. So the screen porch is like an extension of one of those triple A's, one of those 3 dormers. But like I said, it is set back. And also we're improving the accessibility to the house by, there's a deck near that screen porch with a ramp down to the driveway. So that's an improvement. In the front of the house, as Carla mentioned, we're bringing back the double front door, front elevation. One of the doors were concealed at some point, so we're bringing that back. And we're also removing the decorative metal posts and railings and bringing wood back to the front porch for the posts and rails. That's basically the house, but most importantly, Jody and Brandon want to bring the house back into the Durham building stock, and they're excited also to present this accessory dwelling unit as an addition to the much needed Durham housing stock as well. And I'll just briefly talk about the ADU. We've been very careful and intentional to relate the ADU to the house and to keep the perception that the house is still the dominant house on the lot. The subordination of the ADU is all about the perception of the vantage points of people moving through the community, drivers, bikers, walkers. So the subordination of the ADU is about their perception. It's about how the lot is viewed primarily, which is by drivers and pedestrians. And I'd like to read the definition. I believe actually Carla read this definition a couple meetings ago, but I'm going to read the definition of subordination out of the development ordinance. It says it's to be secondary in appearance, so as not to diminish or visually overpower another element or structure. This shall be considered as a whole and shall not require each dimensional aspect to be subordinate. So again, when these drawings are viewed on paper, the ADU does seem to start to challenge the size of the house, but I'm encouraging everyone to look at this project as it will be viewed in real life from the vantage points of bikers, walkers, drivers. And I would like to go to that document, Carla, the one you were first on showing the vantage points from the streets. It's called Perspective something or other.
Are you able to give me a page number? Do you have the PDF open?
The one I want to, it's not on this document. It's on the perspectives, subordination, perspective.
I think it's 20.
Sorry. I guess it's all merged. So it's
Did you have a page number, Katie?
23.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so if we could start please go down to a later page slowly. One more. It's actually, sorry, it's up, maybe 3 pages up. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, right here. So the picture on the right, that is seen from the corner of Alston, standing on the sidewalk from the corner of Alston and Wall. So it gives, that tells you, this house is up on a hill. You're basically looking at a pretty strong angle up at the house. So I just wanted to give that for perspective. So Brandon and Jody put this document together. If Carla, if you could go to the first page of this section. There you go, one where the pictures start, yeah. So I hope everyone can see it. I can't point with my mouse like I was planning to, but You see the little person there next to the house at the gable end on this, yeah. They're holding a pole, and at the top of the pole is a red flag. That red flag is the height of the ADU at its peak, the highest point of the ADU. And what Brandon did was walk around with a friend referencing the site plan and went around to the different corners of the ADU and showed the highest peak of the ADU as seen from the sidewalk in the street. So there it's just up against the house, showing that actually an earlier version, it's the same drawings you're looking at, but at one point the ADU was about 8 inches taller than the house, and that's what we're showing here. In the current submitted version, it's actually a little lower than the house, but I wanted to point that out. So Carla, if you could go down, not all of these show the flag, they just show the house is seen from the streets, but you'll stop at the next page right here. Thank you. So the picture on the left, it's seen from the base of the driveway on the sidewalk. That flag is the highest point of the ADU at that front corner over the garage. So you can see even from the sidewalk, it looks much lower. The picture to the right is seen a little further down Wall Street, looking up, and that is the highest point of the ADU as seen from Wall Street a little further down. You can see how much lower. Carla, if you could go down one more page. Two more, one more from here, please. And one more, thank you. Yeah, so this one, so this is a good one. This one shows actually from the highest vantage point in the community, walking down the sidewalk on Wall Street when you're actually a little bit above the site in elevation. You can see the peak of the house behind the trees, and even from the highest vantage point, the highest point of the ADU is lower in appearance as the UDO defines it. So I'm done with that, Carla. Thank you so much. So we have met the criteria for the ADU, the heated square feet of the ADU being smaller than the house, with the addition of the garage off to the side. Wall Street is a very tight one-way street, so introducing the garage brings a car off the street, and extending the driveway brings another car off the street. So we're actually helping the congestion on that tight street. And now, Carla, if you could please go to, and I'm sorry I can't help you with the page number because they're all combined, but it's the actual plan set, the architectural drawings. It's the 3D page, the page showing the 3D images. So it's past this, it's past the ADU. This one, and I'd like to start with that image you're on there. So I'm just going to briefly talk about 3 ways that we work to relate the ADU to the house. One is the form you can see on the house in the forefront. You've got the gable with the square gable vent. You've got the gable roof shape leading to the shed porch roof. And then if you look back at the ADU, you have that repeating form, the gable roof to the shed porch roof. That square gable vent is a predominant feature of the house, historic feature. So we brought that over to the ADU in the form of a square window up high in the same area of the gable to relate back to the house. And also the siding, the lap siding, Brandon did some investigating and found the spacing of the siding underneath the siding that's there now on the house, the historic siding underneath that's covered. So the new siding matches that spacing. So if anyone ever does take off that siding and brings it back to the original siding, it'll match. And Carla, if you could go to the next image down, yeah, not the page, but the next image down there right there. This one shows the porch relationship. So on the ADU in the back, that's the peak of that shed roof to the right, by the way, was the red flag. So we subtracted some mass, like took some mass away from that highest point of the ADU to make it lighter or less dominant by introducing those porches and taking some mass out. And also the porch of the house, the front porch of the house is that porch on the ADU, which is sort of like related back to that porch, just turn 90 degrees basically. So you can see both porches from the same vantage point. And the porch on the house has three main sections. If we move from the right to the left, it's a section of railing, and then an open section, and then another section of railing. And then over at the ADU, it's similar section of railing, and then you have the wall, solid wall in between, and then another section of railing to try to, and we intentionally left a window out of the bathroom in that solid wall between the porches to strengthen that relationship. We left the window out to honor the porch of the house. There's a little skylight above that provides light for that bathroom. And then the last point, the square windows on the garage relate back to the square windows on the addition, which in turn relates to that square gable vent. So that square gable vent provided a square geometry to carry over into the new stuff. Thank you for your time, and I'll just leave it for whatever Jody and Brandon have to say in your questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. or Mrs. Wirt, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to thank the commission for your good work and reviewing this application and to express our excitement about taking what is a very neglected structure, unlivable at this point, and eventually making it our home and a contributing positive factor in the neighborhood. So thanks for y'all's assistance with that, and look forward to moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from commissioners for the applicant?
Not for me.
I've
got a couple.
Yeah, okay.
Oops.
Looks like both Tad and Jonathan have some questions. Who wants to take lead?
Tad, please.
So how did we get to the double front door configuration?
I'll answer that. It was there originally, so we're bringing it back. Brandon and Jody just wanted to bring the house back as close as they could to the original arrangement.
And looking at a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood, they all have that offset front door, but I don't see any that have two. I assume you went in the wall and found some ghost marks from another door.
Yeah, there were some ghost marks and some signs that the door was there. The siding changes over that area of the front of the house that indicates it was covered later. And there is another house. It's in the application documents. We do show a house that has the two doors, but our hunch is that all those houses had the two front doors at one point, and it's offset because there were at one time two doors.
It's interesting. If you look at the other houses in the district, most of the front doors are offset, and some of them have the board and batten, along the porch, but then the regular siding along the side. It's interesting that every single house would have both doors removed. I'm wondering if maybe a second door was put in there as a subdivision of the house at some point.
Yeah.
So I have done some research with the city directories, and there are houses that were duplexes originally, and they show two residents of the homes.
Gotcha. And then my second comment or question is the structure above the garage and the roof line of that, it seems a little heavy-handed to me. And from the other side, I agree, you've done a great job of being very sympathetic and making everything look correct. But I'm having trouble with the second floor above the garage and the way that roof sits.
Should I respond?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So there are many shed roofs that we're referencing, the original shed roofs to the rear porches, the front porch shed roof, and then we introduced the addition shed roof. And this is another shed roof up there. There's several factors that went into that. We couldn't go up to the full 800 square feet for the ADU because the house is actually a little smaller than 800 square feet, the primary house, even with the addition. So we have minimal headroom up in that per code, up in those bedrooms up there. So we dropped that roof as low as we could. And the shed roof, which referenced other existing shed roofs, was the only way we could fit those 2 bedrooms up there and get the amount of bedrooms that the client wanted. There's 3 total, and they're all fairly small. And then to offset that, we tried to remove some of the massing and relate that form to the front porch of the house, like I described. So lots of factors, trying to tie it into the house, and also just space requirements, trying to fit the program in that the client needed.
Thank you for that. Tad, any additional questions? Let's move on to Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. Diane, my question really, first of all, I second Tad's remarks, especially about the roof line, but I think the massing, it says that it's the new addition is 500 square feet. The existing house is 700, but when I superimpose the two, taking out the porches, I don't see, I think that it looks like the ADU is bigger. So again, the other side that mimics the old house is a great job and should be commended. But back to the massing, in every feel, it feels like the massing of the new addition looks bigger and is more pronounced than the original house. Secondly is the bricks and the paintings, knowing that they've already been painted before on the original house. Now you have the parging. What is the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so the parging, at one point we were proposing parging the whole foundation, but I went back and forth with Carla a bit on that before the submission. The corners of the existing corners of the house are brick, they're parged brick, and they were actually scored to mimic CMU. So the corners were actually parged, and we're proposing to keep those parged and to touch up the parging and just repaint the already painted CMU infill. And then for the new ADU, we were going to parge any foundation that was showing above grade, which is pretty minimal. The house is pretty down close to the grade. And then to address the back to the roof, trying to remember the first part of the question or comment.
So it's footprint and height.
Yeah. So back to that, definition from the development ordinance that it's about appearances, and which we made our case for. The whole mass of the accessory structure, when you include the garage and the dwelling, the footprint is a little larger than the house. And you tease that out between the heated square feet that the UDO requires, which is less than the heated square feet of the house. And then the addition of the garage does, like I said, challenges the size of the house on paper. But our whole argument here and premise is leaning on the perception rather than dimensions. I know that the UDO, and it's about appearances and it's about perception. On paper, it's a little bigger in footprint, but from the people moving through the neighborhood and the way that the property is primarily viewed, it's quite subordinate. That's our argument.
This is a question to Carla. Sorry. Is it, it looked like from staff analysis that you had it at 500 compared to 700.
But I had it at 500. I'm sorry.
So you added like 2/3 the size of the footprint for the original house. Is this new to you, or is this something that you reviewed?
So there's a distinction between the actual living space and then the full footprint. So the full footprint is larger than the house on the first floor level.
Thanks.
Also, I had a question. Mark, are you saying that the parged coating scored on the brick is an original condition, or could that have been done, more recently?
I tried to find out, and I couldn't confirm that.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions for Mr. Barron or Mr. and Mrs. Wirt? Hearing none, is there anybody here present at this hearing who would like to speak for or against this case? I know at one point Tom Miller was here. I think he rejoined at some point, but I do not see him present at this moment. Chris, can you confirm?
Mr. Chairman, I'm here. Preservation Durham has no. There we go. There I am.
Mr. Miller, before you get started, I don't believe you were sworn when we first began this hearing, and so if I could once again ask.
I was only going to say that we don't have a position in the case.
Okay, well, that makes it easy. Well, hearing no opposition to this case, and having heard from and asked questions to the applicant, I think we are prepared to close the public hearing and discuss amongst the commissioners. I'm hearing two primary concerns. The one concerning whether or not the ADU is clearly subordinate to the primary structure, as well as a concern about parging of the historic masonry on the primary structure. Tad or Jonathan, did you want to lead off here with the discussion?
In looking at the picture that's on the screen now, that upper level of that ADU just it seems to scream that it doesn't adhere to the guidelines to me.
The guidelines that it be clearly subordinate to the primary structure, Ted?
Well, that, and it doesn't seem sympathetic, and I understand there's some shed roofs in the district, but this to me looks almost sort of neo-contemporary. I just don't see any connection to the house or the neighborhood in just in that one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson, I'd have to agree. What I think my major issue is that if the shed roof contemporary design was behind the house, because when you're looking at the on from the street, the garage, the first level garage seems to fit. It looks like there's just a garage behind the house, but then you have this very off design sitting there as well. But more of the issue is the massing. I don't think that this ADU is subordinate, because the square footage is larger than the house. It says and what I want to ask the commission is that, are we to look at the footprint of the heated square footage as commissioners looking at design, or are we supposed to take the whole unit, the whole ADU unit as a whole into consideration? And that's where I am, because that's where I am concerned. I think the heated square foot is something code related, but as far as design related, are we supposed to look at the whole unit?
I would argue we don't look at the heated, we don't look at interior furnishing, we don't look at interior design. What's interior to the envelope, I would say, is not in our purview, from what I understand. And so we're looking at the structure. That's how I feel it.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Yes, I would agree. You're looking at the structure as a whole, but you don't also have to only look at square footage. There are other factors that you would consider: number of stories, different design decisions in terms of shape and form of the structure, how it reads from the street, whether it's subordinate or not. You're not tied specifically to square footage for the accessory structures. You are for the additions.
Chair Bouchard here. How it reads from the street is really interesting issue with respect to this case, Carla, as I see it. And in that regard, I'm curious to know what exists to the left of this driveway at the edge of this property, and how would that ADU appear if we were actually looking from this very perspective, that we see in plan sheet A220? Would it be this obvious, or is there vegetation or another dwelling? What?
Yes. So my understanding is the streets. This is a corner lot, but the street is on the other side of the house, and then it comes here. And so this is right here is another dwelling on this lot.
So if we're looking at the house just straight on from Wall Street, we would see at least a portion of the garage and the second story of this ADU.
You'll see all of it.
Well,
it's a straight driveway.
blocked.
It's a straight driveway, so it's almost the width of the driveway. So
okay,
you probably see all of it.
Okay.
Can I suggest that we move to that document that shows what we're talking about to match our conversation?
Sure, that was number 23.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, thank you. This wasn't just about the flag. It shows views from all around the neighborhood. Some you can't even see the house because for the foliage. And I know my renderings are sorely lacking any sort of natural item at all. So no tree.
So we've got basically a dirt drive. We've got foliage to the left. Is that foliage remaining, Mr. Barron?
Yeah, the trees to the left are remaining.
Please distinguish between trees and leaves and branches, because it's just hard for me to conceive that you can build that and leave all those branches in place. Is that, maybe I'm completely wrong, and it's a question, sorry.
Yeah, it is hard to tell from the photos. I know there's a tree that we're saving that's shown on the plans that's more than 12 inches at breast height. So that is a tree that we will be saving that's shown in the site plan. And maybe Jody and Brandon can help me out. You're more familiar. It's not that big tree that we see first. I think it's behind that.
Yeah, Mark, we will gladly speak to this. Brandon, you've walked it more.
Sure. The large pin oak that does sit directly on the property line between ourselves and our neighbors to the west, we do want to save that tree. And so there are 3 branches that come off of that tree that would need to be removed in order to accommodate the roof line as designed. But that is a huge tree with massive foliage both to the south and west and above the house. So the house really will tuck into that tree quite nicely once those 3 branches are removed. I'll also say that Duke Power did some of that work for us by clearing the line behind the house. So there's been a lot of foliage removed from the north property line already from maintaining the property lines. The last thing I'll say is that our architect, our builder, our contractor suggested that we get an arborist to come and look at where the roots for that tree are, and that in order to save that pin oak, the entire ADU structure may need to shift a little bit to the east in order to not disturb the roots of that tree, which would shift that shed roof, the 2nd story above the garage, a little bit behind the house by 5, 6, 7 feet, 8 feet maybe. We're not sure yet because we haven't had an opportunity to get an arborist on site.
And I'll just say too, for perspective, thinking of Commissioner Dan here. So when you're looking at the middle picture here, thank you, Carla. So you see the drive, you see the branches hanging over. Those are belong to a tree that's it's like a little more shrubby kind of tree. And if you look back and you see the massive canopy that's darker green behind the house, it takes up like the whole back part there. That's that pin oak. So while some of these branches would have to be trimmed for the drive or whatever, the pin oak canopy actually goes up and wouldn't, be in conflict with any part of the ADU. This is a tricky picture for seeing the depth of what's really happening here.
So, sorry, I'll clarify my question. I think it was following Matt Bouchard's question. Is that would it mask the building, or would it be seen, or would it won't see it? And from what I understand, from what would be needed for the integrity of the new structure, it would be clear sight from the street, unless if you do move, of course, 8 feet. The whole driveway is about 15 feet, or sorry, the whole addition of the garage is 15 feet wide. So if you move it 8 feet to east, it looks like it would mask most of the addition. But if it stays where it is, I think there's going to be clear sight, and it's going to be pronounced compared to the main structure. That's how I feel.
One other aspect to this, because that ADU is set so far to the north property line, there's really a narrow window of viewing that ADU from the street. And it's only when you are directly in line with the driveway for that 12 or 15 foot width. Because of the foliage on the west property line, and because of the original structure, it really is about a 15 or 20 foot wide section of Wall Street from which you would have clear views of that ADU. The foliage would mask it when you're moving east on Wall Street coming down the hill, and the house blocks it when you're moving west up Wall Street. So unless your head is turned 90 degrees for the entire distance of secting the driveway, that's really the only place where you'll have a very clear view of the ADU in that south face of the garage and 2nd floor.
Just to clarify, you said east to Alston or west to Alston?
If you're moving east on Wall Street towards Alston.
East, okay, so yeah, that's fine.
So you would be, I guess the whole point is that really, because it's set so far to the back, that driveway and the foliage in the house create a tunnel such that you really only see that full face when you're standing at the front of the driveway looking directly north down that driveway. If you take 3 steps either direction, that ADU becomes obscured.
Well, that's,
understood, thank you.
Excuse me, but that's a seasonal issue as well. I mean, the foliage is not going to always be there. It's my only response to that.
I think that point's well taken. Let me ask one more question to Mr. Barron, to Mr. and Mrs. Wirt, related to this issue of subordination, and then I'm going to reclose the public hearing so commissioners can resume discussions amongst themselves. Would it be fair to say that a lot of this discussion, maybe all of it, is being driven by the programmatic decision to have a garage on the ground floor, and that if there were no garage on the ground floor, we'd probably have a 1-story or maybe 1.5-story ADU or something that would not require as much massing on the left-hand side of that structure. And if that's the case, I'm just curious to know why that garage is such a key component of your program.
Well, my program is driven by Brandon and Jody's needs, so I'll
Sure.
let them answer if you want to, Brandon and Jody.
Certainly. These are both exceptionally small living structures. And so the 1-car garage is meant both to provide off-street parking for a vehicle on a very narrow street, but also some storage space. So you'll just notice that there just is no internal storage to either of these buildings. They really are people storage, places for shelter. And so that 1-car garage is actually quite a modest addition to get a vehicle off street and provide some mode of storage for residents at this property.
I appreciate that. Why don't we go ahead and reclose the public hearing and go back to commissioner discussion? Because I think it's important, and this might partially respond to Commissioner Johnson's question about what we should or should not consider in terms of massing and the evaluation of whether or not something's subordinate. The definition is secondary in appearance so as not to diminish or visually overpower another element or structure. That's subordinate. Our criteria actually uses the expression clearly subordinate, which, my personal construction is there should be no doubt. It should be obvious that this is clearly subordinate. And I think what we're hearing from a number of commissioners here is some reluctance to accept that clearly subordinate standard is being met here. I mean, I think it probably makes sense to do what we've done here in the past and just try to take a straw vote to sort of see where the commissioners' minds are on this application. Would it be fair to say, Jonathan and Tad, that you are not prepared to support this application as it currently exists, mostly because of the size of the ADU?
Yes.
And location. Well, I can't say just size. I would say that just hypothetically, if the 2 stories were spread out on the ground for 1 story, even though the footprint would be much bigger, I think then I can understand subordination in a different way. But as described, yes, I feel that this is massed bigger than the original building.
Any other commissioners want to chime in?
Well, the issue with me is that most of it is unseen. It's just the small portion of it that you can see from the driveway. And if even this small portion you can see from the driveway does not cause me too much alarm, except for the contemporary look. But if they are able to move it 5 to 7 feet to the east, I think I will feel better about it. As far as the massing of the property, again, most of it is hidden anyway. It just still, and if appearance is part of that definition of subordination, it only appears that way if you're looking at the plans. If you're looking at it from the street, you wouldn't really know how big it is. I'm a little torn. I think I will vote in favor of it. Yes, I think I will probably vote in favor.
Katie?
So I think, for me, the size of it isn't as much of an issue as I think that shed roof being the primary or tallest roof, I think is a little odd. To me, normally a shed roof isn't above a gable like this one currently is. It's kind of a weird configuration. I do think, like, based on the, information given with the views, that I do think it falls into the category of subordinate to a certain degree, but it would be, in my opinion, more subordinate if the two-story structure, portion of the structure, were actually behind the primary structure to allow the part that's most visible from the street to be like the one-story portion of the structure. I think would kind of help in some of that, but I don't know that it's not subordinate to the point where I wouldn't support it based on that. But I do feel like this shed roof is more my concern than the actual size of the structure. It's the roof lines that I'm thinking are a little odd for me.
Could you support the proposal as it's currently before us?
I think I could, but I would, if they'd be willing to reconsider the roof lines, I'd actually be more happy with that. But I could support it if it came to a vote.
How about Laura?
I have a tough time supporting it as is for both the massing reason and the roof line reason that we've talked about here. And appreciate what you're doing here about adding more housing, off-street parking, and am curious what the design creatives in the room could do to help sort of meet both the programmatic requirements and help the form feel like it fits better with the existing structure in the neighborhood.
Wanda?
Well, I'd like to make sure I compliment what was done to the original portion. Because, my thoughts on that roof line is it is a bit bizarre as a compliment to what's already been done on the front. And this whole issue about it being covered, again, I brought up the seasonal issue. That coverage is not going to go with our seasons. There's going to be a time where it's not. And I also think I could accept it better on if it was moved more, as they said it could possibly be. So, but that roof line is a bit bizarre for the beauty that they have put in front of it already. So that is my concern.
Thank you, Wanda. Tom? Tom, you there? Tom is apparently not here. I'm hearing at least four fairly significant concerns about the ADU. And I'm always cautious to put a case to a vote that might not succeed, and the implications that has for when the application can be resubmitted. This might be a question for Krista. Is it possible to, obviously with the consent of the applicant, to consider those portions of an application that relate to the primary structure and excise from the application those portions that deal with the accessory structure, and essentially continue discussion of the accessory structure until such later time as perhaps the structure can be redesigned, whether that's moving it, changing that roof line that is causing concern. Is it possible to bifurcate, I guess, the application into the portions dealing with primary structure from those dealing with the accessory structure. Or alternatively, if we think it makes sense to give the applicant an additional opportunity to make some revisions to the accessory structure, to simply continue the entire application to some later time.
Krista Kugro, City Attorney's Office. I certainly think that the commission could hear testimony about the primary structure today and kind of deliberate on that. I think the dilemma is, you know, the commission isn't going to issue two different certificates of appropriateness. And so, you know, for the applicant's sake, having that discussion today could sort of give them a sense of what the commission might do in terms of that primary structure, but they wouldn't get an approval necessarily today upon which they could then act. So I just throw that out there for both the applicant and the commission's consideration in terms of what it might want to do timing wise.
That's helpful.
Does that answer your question?
It does. And with that in mind, let me turn back to the applicant. I am, as the chair of this commission, willing to proceed however the applicant would like. We can certainly put your case to a vote today. You heard through the straw poll that I conducted that there might not be sufficient support to approve this application. Is there a willingness to consider some of the concerns that we've raised today, go back to the drawing board and resubmit the application with some revisions that might make the overall application more palatable to a majority of the commission members?
I guess I would ask a question. In that scenario, what would it look like? What would the reapplication look like? Would we be able to salvage our application and the fees and just basically submit revised drawings?
I think we're looking at a continuance, right? So it would be the same application, but you would make revisions to your current drawings, and you'd basically redesign your package, but within the same app, it would have the same case number, and it would be heard. The minimum continuance is 2 months.
Minimum? So
right. So either
have to wait 2 months.
Right. So we wouldn't be able to hear it next month, but we could hear it January. I'm sorry. Wait, it won't go to November. It could go to December or January.
I just wanted to ask that question. It looks like Brandon might want to say something. I don't know. Not to put you on the spot. Just looked like you're about to talk.
Thanks. I really appreciate all of the feedback from the commission on this. And the shed roof was not a light decision. It really does accommodate the square footage needed to have any sort of a livable dwelling at under 800 square feet. If that were a gable roof, it actually pushes the foundation out several feet in both directions in order to get headroom in that second floor. So I just want the commission to know that we agree with you in terms of your evaluation, that it's not a perfect match with the neighborhood, but given the constraints for headroom in those rooms above the garage and things like that, it really was the only feature that we could come up with to accommodate that. We are very ready and willing to consider shifting that ADU to the east to push that shed roof back behind the front elevation of the original structure. I think that would be a great compromise position. Of course, we'll do what we need to do to accommodate the concerns. And if that's a 2-month continuance and a redesign, that's expensive, both in terms of time and money on a project that already has a lot of consideration invested in it. If we could do a straw poll about moving that structure, the ADU, to the east 8 feet, something like that, that would help to hide that roof, that would be my preference, although I don't want to get a no vote. So I appreciate y'all's positions. I agree with them, and want to find a compromise where we can move forward and all be happy.
Well, look, I'm more than happy to see whether or not that one adjustment, shifting the footprint of the ADU, up to 8 feet to the east would be sufficient to garner significant, sufficient support from the commission. I'll start with Tad and Jonathan, who I think have expressed the strongest concerns, to see whether or not.
Chair Bouchard, I have
Yes.
a quick question
Sure.
before we do the straw poll for the architect. I just have a design question. Is it possible to do a low profile, a low pitch hip roof for that roof above the garage? Would that still give you the height you need?
Well, I think, so you're introducing 2 slopes instead of 1 with a gable roof. So it actually pushed the peak, it would make it taller.
Okay.
So to me, that works against the subordinate requirement.
All right.
So we're already at the minimum head height up there.
All right, thank you.
Tad and Jonathan, would shifting the footprint be sufficient to garner your support?
Do you want to go first or me? Okay, I'll start. Jonathan Dayan. It's going to be reluctant, yes. Well, I'll say yes. If not happy, I also think that half of the second floor is a porch, is an outside porch. The roof line above it makes it much bigger than it would have been without a roof line. But I'm also reluctant to give any advice on design. I don't think that's our position, and I don't think we should do any of that. Yes, if it would be hidden more behind, because of the east side is great, is beautiful, so much thought into it, and this feels like that in a way it can ruin the whole picture of when you look at it from the area on Wall Street, which is the entrance to the house. That's my biggest fear. But again, you're nice people. You've done a great job. So yes, I will.
Tad, would it be
That's
enough?
not the reason, but yeah.
I think that's a no. You're on mute.
Yeah, the way I read the criteria, I just don't think this particular roof line and massing works.
Let's move on to April.
I would probably vote yes on the premise that even though the massing doesn't seem to work, that it wouldn't be visible. The appearance of the massing would be hidden.
Thank you. Katie?
I just have one. So with the driveway S curve into the, I'm 8 feet's a long way for a single car garage door that's probably only 8 feet wide to begin with. So, I mean, it's fine. I think I could vote yes. I'm just concerned about like a verbal agreement to this thing, and is it actually still functional for the driveway? Not that that's really our purview. I guess if they have a non-functional driveway, it's not our thing, but to make a verbal agreement right now and then have them have to come back, I would just make sure they agree that it'll still be functional. But yeah, I think I agree with April. I also think I need the architect on the commission to give me a lesson in roof lines and how these work, because like the architects that come before us make these, statements, and I sometimes like geometry wise don't understand them. So that would be Carla, if we can get training in the future on how roof lines work, that would be nice for me as a landscape architect who doesn't have to deal with roofs. But yeah, I think if it's more hidden behind the primary structure, I'd be willing to approve.
Laura?
I'm having a hard time getting excited about the massing and the roof shape, regardless of whether it's visible or not. And I'm in the local review criteria, trying to understand where that comes from. And there are two things here that apply for new structures to be design new accessory structures to be clearly subordinate to the primary structure. And for me, the massing negates this to do. And then new structures, 3B, design elements, design roof forms to be compatible with contributing structures in the district. And even, shifted over or not, I think we're still not there with this guideline. So I'm a no at this point.
Can I jump in before you say no? Because there's something that I think we need to take into consideration. And I agree with you totally. I said from the beginning about the massing, Tad, Wanda. The issue here is the primary structure that is very small, and we have to deal also with neighborhoods that have very tiny houses, usually lower income or mid to lower income, and they have to deal now with criteria that when we have a house on Club Boulevard and they add 2,000 square feet because they have a primary structure that's 3,000 square feet. So I feel that if we are able to read between the lines and play with the massing and understanding, so there's no, we don't want a 3,000 square foot house come back and say, hey, wait a second, we have a precedence here. We can build 3,000 square foot house. We will just tuck it behind, and it's and you gave an okay before. In this situation, I think there's a reason why we can. I at least am able to shift to the yes, as long as it's not really seen and pronounced from the street, because we have to keep the integrity of the historic of the presence, the historic presence of this house. So that's where I am, and where I'm jumping in. And I'm sorry I do that sometimes, but I feel that here that there's a good reason to do so.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. And I totally agree with you in spirit. I think it's a little bit tricky here in that we've got a small original structure that's 1 bedroom. We are trying to add a 3-bedroom plus 1-car garage plus 2-bath accessory structure on a very small lot. And it programmatically is asking a lot of the accessory structure. Maybe there's a magical way using good design to make it happen, but yeah, I get what you're saying in spirit. That makes total sense to me too.
Wanda? Would simply shifting be sufficient to garner your support?
I just unmuted. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry on the mute issue. I think the intent was magical. And so I'll go with the magic of hoping that it will be shifted as much as possible. I agree with Katie totally on missing our commissioner who could tell us a little bit more about the roof today. We'll have to tell him about that. But I think if it's shifted, it will help during some seasons. So in lieu of that, only in some seasons, and I'm in that area a lot. So when all of your leaves are gone, I'm gonna say, what did I do? But I could support it.
And Tom, we haven't heard from you. Would you like to provide some input on this issue before we move along? For the record, and I'm not trying to be contrarian, I'm going to have, I think, trouble supporting the proposal even with an 8-foot shift. I'm concerned that there's a precedent. There would be a precedent set here, and I'm not convinced that the ADU as currently designed is clearly subordinate to the primary structure. And so I understand the programmatic decisions that have been made and why a garage might be preferable, why porches on the upper level might be preferable. And like Jonathan said, I don't think it's really our purview to say how folks should or shouldn't design structures. But those design decisions, I think, have increased the massing of the building, and I'm a little bit concerned about the precedential value of approving this ADU would have on our future work. And so that's kind of where we're at. There may be sufficient support if solely a footprint shift is what's being contemplated here, but to the extent there is a desire to look again at some of the programmatic decisions and design decisions, I think there's probably an opportunity to garner additional support if some additional changes are made. But with that, I think it probably does make sense to entertain a motion to continue, presuming the applicant is prepared to make at least the one adjustment that we've talked about, shifting the ADU footprint by 8 feet. If the applicant is prepared to accept a continuance, we can certainly move to do so.
I guess my question is, the continuance, does that mean it's like a conditional approval and it's continued to the point where I submit a new site plan showing that the ADU has been shifted? Or are we talking about the 2-month wait period?
Carla?
Yeah, so it is new materials. You'll revise your design. That includes the site plan, elevations. All of your materials will need to match whatever the new design is. And when we say new design, you obviously don't have to change everything about the structure. There's key parts of it that I hear were supported by our commissioners, but to address their concerns, you'll need to revise some portions of the application, and then you'll submit those new materials to our department, and it'll have the same case number. There's no additional fee incurred, but there is a 2-month continuance at a minimum to allow for my re-review and a new staff report, basically a revised staff report, and it won't need new advertising, but it will post to the agenda as a revised case, as a continued case. Is that clear?
Yeah, and just a quick follow-up question. So the alternative is to go ahead and vote now and risk a no vote, and that would bring about a completely new application?
Yes, it would need to be substantially changed, and that right now you can tweak it and get a good idea first from the commission about how much tweaking is needed to ensure a positive outcome at your continuance. But if you were to just go ahead with a vote now, you do risk it not being approved. And then you would need to, if you ever wanted to come back with a new application, it would have to be substantially different.
I guess those are my questions. It's a lot to put on Brandon and Jody, so I'll see if they have anything to say about that.
It's disappointing to hear this result from this hearing. I think we put a lot of time and effort into accommodating the historic restoration and creating a livable space on a very small property. I think Mark's been exceedingly thoughtful about that and working within parameters that meet code and aesthetic preference for no shed roof seems a lot to accommodate. However, I personally believe in your work. I believe that you help contribute to our hometown and the integrity of historic neighborhoods. And so I would be willing to go back with Mark and try to tweak the design on a continuance basis because I want your full support with this project. It's a disappointment though, I have to say that. I think that we've been very thoughtful about these things, but if I get a nod from both Jody and Mark that tweaking the current design and entering a 2-month continuance process is what they would also agree to, I'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, I'm willing to as well. And I just bring it home about yeah, this case is a precedent, and I hope it's also a precedent to really exploring the definition of subordinate for how it's stated, and that it is about appearance. That's the definition, specifies appearance, and its only mention of dimension is that you can't take one dimension and judge it from one dimension. It's got to be taken as a whole. So not arguing against your findings, but I think it's an interesting dimension of subordination to consider. And some lots are very unique, like this one, and that, you know, the vantage is really skewed from common viewing angles. So I'll leave it at that. And I agree with Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. You all are doing very good, important work, and I appreciate your work as well.
Please, thank you. Tom Miller is here, and I think that a lot will have a recollection. I think there is precedence, and I'm shooting myself in the leg. No one will like me after this. I think there is precedence on Club Boulevard. There was a 1,100 square foot house on 2308, if I'm not mistaken, that had an addition of 3,000 square foot. And the reason for that precedence was that they wanted to demolish the front. And if this is all, if my recollection is correctly, and what happened was there was a compromise, and the compromise is no demolition, and they added that addition in the back. So if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But if not, I think that a second look here should be given to.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department.
Go ahead, Carla.
Sorry, just to clarify, that was an addition, and there is a square footage criterion for additions where there isn't for ADUs, but that was the previous criteria. So just want to clarify that.
Would someone like to make a motion to continue?
So moved. Is there a wording for that? No. Okay. I move to continue case number COA 210064. And do I need to give a date specific?
Yeah, to December 7th.
To December 7th.
Second. And Ms. Holmes, Clerk Holmes, if we could please have a roll call vote on the motion to continue.
Yes, who was second?
That was me,
Okay,
Chair Bouchard.
all right. All right, Chair Bouchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Dayan,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Krager, all right, Commissioner Waiters.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Well, thank you all for your patience and for your understanding and your hard work. And we look forward to seeing you again here in a couple of months and hearing what changes you've made and hopefully garnering enough support for the proposal to be acceptable to this commission.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. If we could do a 5-minute recess, would everyone be amenable to that? Terrific. Let's try to be back at 10:45.
As we return, individuals who are signed up for case COA 21000067, we are bringing you in right now. So you may be receiving requests to accept as a panelist. Please do so.
I would ask that commission members, as you return, if you could go ahead and put your cameras on so I know that you are back. Tad and Jonathan, when you come back, if you could please turn your cameras on so that we know that you are here. Apparently is not yet the case.
Yeah, it won't let me turn my camera on. It says the host has to open up.
Chris, can you
yeah, I think your camera was left on, so I turned it off during the break. So you should be able to.
There we go.
Sorry about that, Ted.
Welcome back, Commissioner DeBerry. All right, Jonathan, Tom, can you turn your cameras on if you're back?
Here.
All right, terrific. I believe we are ready to proceed now with our next case on the agenda. This is COA 21000067, 1108 Alabama Avenue, new construction of accessory structure. And Chris, have you brought in all of the speakers?
I believe all who are registered are in. They just need to turn on their cameras, please. If you are in the attendee panel and you wish to join, please raise your hand. If you're calling by phone, we do have one caller. Please press *9 if you intend to join for case 210063. Thank you.
All right, I see Ms. Fellows, Ms. Rickborg, am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay. And I see Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson can turn on his camera. Well, while we're waiting for that to happen, if we could go ahead, Ms. Holmes, and proceed with swearing in of our witnesses.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
David Parker, I do.
Ms. Rickberg?
Yes, sorry.
Ms. Fellows?
Yes, I do.
And Mr. Wilson? Well, we maybe need to come back to Mr. Wilson if he speaks. If I could also ask each of you to confirm that you consent to this hearing proceeding today using this electronic virtual platform.
Yes.
Yes.
And Ms. Fellows? If you could unmute, please.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much. Let us proceed then with the staff report.
This is case COA 21000067, 1108 Alabama Avenue, new construction of an accessory structure. The applicant is Riverbank Custom Homes, represented by Fletcher Wilson. The owner, Jane Fellows, is located on the east side of Alabama Avenue between West Club Boulevard and Inglewood Avenue, zoned residential suburban 8, and it's a non-contributing structure within the Watts-Hellendale Historic District. So the applicant is proposing to construct a new accessory structure that will be used as an ADU. I'd like to enter the staff report into the record and ask Mr. Wilson to present his case.
Carla, when I registered, I actually sent a note indicating I was going to present.
Okay, I missed that. So
is that okay?
Mr. Parker, please present your case.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, my name is David Parker. I am representing the applicant, Riverbank Custom Homes, and we are here seeking approval of the proposed accessory structure at 1108 Alabama Avenue in the Watts-Hellendale Historic District. I also have the good fortune of being a neighbor of the property and owner, Ms. Jane Fellows. The primary structure at 1108 Alabama Avenue is a simple 1,300 square foot brick ranch with a Dutch hip roof, built in 1961. The property is classified as not contributing according to the Watts-Hellendale Preservation Plan. Despite carrying no official designation of significance, we recognize the architectural value of the style, referred to as the House of the American Dream, and its contribution to the diversity of housing within this district. Thus, we've submitted an accessory structure design inspired by the primary dwelling here at 1108. We've placed the new structure completely behind the primary structure to limit visibility from the street. The 1-story height, shorter ridge peak, and 2-foot lower grade in front of the new structures compared to the front of the existing all contribute to experiencing the accessory structure as clearly, I hope clearly, subordinate. In form, we chose to echo features such as the roof, windows, and doors. We sought to match the foundation brick to that of the existing structure, but are proposing to deviate materially in regards to the siding. We're introducing a horizontal lap for the main body of the structure with a section of cedar shingle accent, each a common cladding throughout Watts-Hellendale. We thought that pivoting from the brick veneer of the primary structure would help clearly distinguish the original from the new, while providing a complementary aesthetic. As for the site, there was thoughtful consideration in design and placement of the new structure to preserve and better experience the back portion of the lot, which is quite unique given its narrow but deep orientation. And it's about 1/10 of an acre there of wooded area containing over 20 trees of 8 inches of greater diameter. And vehicular access is being modified by extending the gravel driveway and introducing a rear parking pad of concrete pavers. That material is intended to better harmonize with the natural environment. And I noticed in the write-up specific to that driveway, there was a reference to the driveway being extended 971 linear feet. That would be a really long driveway. So that the plans actually said square feet. So obviously the site plan shows you there how long it's being extended. So we hope you'll find that this proposed accessory structure at 1108 Alabama Avenue is considerate of its surroundings and respectful to the district as a whole. And I welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Parker. Do any of the other folks who have signed up as potential speakers wish to add anything to Mr. Parker's remarks? All right.
I don't think so.
Mr. Parker, looks like you covered it. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Parker at this time? Scrolling through to see if I come across any hands raised or any microphones coming off. I do not see any. Is there anyone else present during this hearing who would like to speak for or against this case? Hearing from and seeing none, we will close the public hearing and discuss amongst commissioners. I guess I'll get it started. Back-to-back cases involving ADUs. Speaking just for myself, it appears to me that this meets our criteria. Looks like great care was taken in making sure that the accessory unit would be clearly subordinate to and consistent with the primary structure. And so I don't have any concerns about it. Does anyone have any concerns about the application or any of its details? Okay,
Matt, I don't have a concern either, but I'd like to congratulate the applicant and the construction company. I think this clearly meets our criteria and is what was envisioned when the criteria was written. Thank you.
And I like to echo what DeBerry and Commissioner Bouchard's Commissioners DeBerry and Bouchard spoke. I think it was, it doesn't give me unease. So thank you.
You both. I appreciate it.
I have a question. I agree with everything as well. The question is for Carla. There's, for some reason, lighting, signage, and art was put into the approval process. There was no staff recommendation. I don't think there's anything related, but I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Is the applicant proposing any lighting on this accessory structure?
No.
Okay.
We'll
Then you
have
can
to have
disregard.
lighting as per code outside of the entry doors.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So if we could discuss that during this hearing, so that we can ensure that it could be incorporated into your COA. Otherwise, it would require a separate COA.
Is there not a light fixtures in that packet? I've got it in mind.
Yeah, there is. It looks like an arts and crafts version of a exterior light.
There is. And are you able to hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Fletcher Wilson with Riverbank. I had a little bit of a computer issue there earlier. I apologize.
Hey, Mr. Wilson, before you speak, this is Chair Bouchard. We do need to follow the formalities here and make sure that you're properly sworn in. And so I would ask Clerk Holmes to go ahead and swear you in.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
I do.
And Mr. Wilson, I take it you consent to proceeding using this remote virtual platform today?
I do.
Great. Please proceed.
Yeah, I mean, the exterior lights are really just the one you see there, and that would be part of the screen and porch on the back of the house, and then an exterior can light under the front porch. And that really is all the exterior lighting.
So they would be included in these elevations. We can revise the elevation, just include that. If it gets approved, then you would just need to add that to the elevation.
Yeah, it would just be a part of that screen and porch.
Okay.
Any other comments from commissioners before we ask Carla for a staff recommendation? Okay. Seeing and hearing none. Carla, can we please have a staff recommendation?
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Staff would recommend approval of the application.
Wonderful. Thank you. Can I have a motion, please?
I can do it. Give me a minute. Go down here. All right. The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in the case of COA 21000067 1108 Alabama Avenue, new construction of accessory structure. The applicant is proposing to construct a one-story accessory structure intended to be used as an accessory dwelling unit at the rear of a non-contributing primary structure. The accessory structure will measure 716 square feet in footprint and 1 foot less in height than the primary structure. The construction materials will include concrete masonry unit, CMU foundation walls with brick veneer, horizontal cementitious fiberboard lap siding, cedar shakes, a natural wood 6 by 6 column, 6 inch by 6 inch column, fiberglass screening, wood composite trim, fiberglass clad wood windows and doors, a modern standing seam metal roof, asphalt roof shingles, and pressure treated wood decking. The existing gravel driveway will be extended 971 linear feet towards the ADU, and a 216 square foot concrete paver parking pad installed in the rear yard. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report. And the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 21000067 1108 Alabama Avenue, new construction of accessory structure with the following conditions. The improvements shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at this commission hearing and attached to the COA. The improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies. The applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals relating to building construction, site work, and work in the right-of-way, and a compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein.
Second. Did you get that second, dear?
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am, I did.
We can have a roll call vote.
I have a question. Did we, I'm sorry, I don't have the second page, the page 44 of the motion. 900 feet driveway?
Yes, it says 971 linear feet towards the ADU.
There's no
These-
way there's about 900
It's
feet.
square feet. He brought that up at the beginning.
Oh,
It's
okay.
971 square feet.
So we correct that.
Scrivener's error.
Yeah. Did that get caught? Did we corrected that to square feet?
Okay, we'll correct that in the motion on the certificate.
All right.
Ms. Holmes, we can have a roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner Dan,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Kreger.
I was absent for that case.
All right. Commissioner Waiters.
Approved.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you all very much. Really nice job here with the design and concept for this ADU, and good luck with the project.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very
Really
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are now prepared, I think, to move on to the final case on our agenda for today's meeting. This is COA 21-00068-501 Washington Street, demolition of accessory structures. We have a number of attendees slated here. Looks like Chris is working to bring them in. Ms. Hoffman, good morning. Mr. Kurtz, good morning. Mr. Miller, good to see you again. Good morning. And it looks like Mr. O'Leary is still working to get his camera up. And his camera is up. If we could, Clerk Holmes, swear in the witnesses.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
I do.
Yes, I do.
I do.
No, couldn't hear you there, Mr. O'Leary. You are unmuted, but I do not hear any volume. Well, let's come back to Mr. O'Leary, and while we are waiting, let's go ahead and make sure that the other presenters consent to proceeding with this hearing using this electronic and virtual facility. If I could hear from Ms. Hoffman first.
I do.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Miller?
I do.
And Mr. O'Leary, you back?
I think so, and I do.
Great. And if we could also now confirm that you accept the oath.
I do. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. I believe we're prepared to move forward with a staff report.
Hey, Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 21-00068, 501 Washington Street, demolition of accessory structures. The applicant is Steve Vinson, the owner, Magnolia Fire Tower Place, LLC. It's located on the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Washington Street and West Corporation Street, zoned Downtown Design Support 1. And this is a historic landmark, not in a district. It's the city garage and fire tower. So I'd like to introduce this staff report into the record and invite the applicant to present his case. Oh, and I would also like to note if you are able to give page numbers, if you're able to access via our agenda page this application, that will help in my scrolling through this application to the page that you're presenting.
I'll do my best. Well, good morning and thank you for the staff report. My name is Cindy Hoffman. I'm a professional landscape architect representing the applicant of the 501 Washington Street property. I'm a licensed landscape architect in North Carolina with over 20 years experience and a senior project manager at Stewart in Durham. Also speaking a little bit later today will be Nathan O'Leary, an environmental consultant with over 15 years of national experience and project manager with Hart Hickman in Charlotte. We are here today requesting a major certificate of appropriateness for demolition of accessory structures and additions to the primary structure on 501 Washington Street property in downtown Durham. We've got the existing site plan up and showing the buildings highlighted to be demolished. The project site is located on 2.78 acres and is a prominent visible site at the corner of Washington and West Corporation Streets and adjacent east of the existing abandoned railroad and future Durham Beltline. The site is part of the Foster and West Gear Street National Historic District. The city garage building and the fire drill tower are listed as local historic landmarks. The City Place complex was developed over a 70-year period of time during the 20th century. City garage and the fire tower were originally constructed during the 1920s. Significant modifications were made to the site during the 1940s through the 1990s as new accessory buildings were constructed and additions to the city garage building were added. There are a total of 7 buildings on site based on the 1999 landmark application. 3 of those are non-contributing buildings or structures, being the signal shop, see that there, the metal shop, and the pole shed building, which is covered parking. There are also 4 contributing buildings or structures: the former employees' restroom, the signs and marking shop, the city garage building, and the local fire tower. The overall character, today the city garage building houses various commercial uses, including shops, restaurants, and professional offices. The accessory buildings on site behind city garage have undersized footprints and limited window openings. The signal shop, which was the former Board of Elections building adjacent to Corporation Street, has interior low ceilings and structural cinder block walls, dividing the building into multiple small spaces. They're extremely challenging to modify and contributing to the building's outdated functional use. The accessory buildings were constructed with their back to the railroad or future Beltline property. The ad hoc nature of the building complex on site has multiple material types and architectural styles not in keeping with the primary historic structures. So we're here today for the Certificate of Appropriate application proposing demolition to 5 of the structures and 2 of the additions on the City Place garage. The structures have been heavily modified after the period of significance or a continued public health nuisance. 3 of the non-contributing structure buildings and 2 are contributing structures, which include the 1 non-conforming structure, the pole shed, covered parking, the 2 non-contributing buildings, the signal shop and metal shop. They have no historic value. And then the 2 contributing buildings, the signs and marking shop, which has been significantly modified with ashlar pavers, of which the applicant is proposing to maintain and salvage, and also the former employee's bathroom. It has, in addition to the ashlar pavers, it has new materials of steel doors, blackened windows, and modern light fixture. Can you scroll through some of the photos, please? And we'll look at some of those. There's the former employee's restroom. You can see the metal doors. Next photo. And the block windows. It does have the use of or reuse of the ashlar pavers that were once a part of the Durham streets. And the applicant is proposing to reuse those. And then this other contributing building, well, this is the addition that we're gonna get to in just a minute. Let's go back to the bathrooms. I'm sorry. They're not in the order that I was going. So a lot of these, then the other contributing building is the employee's bathroom. Again, with the steel doors, block windows, and modern light fixtures. It has significant mold issues. And I think there's some photos of there. The interior, the last page maybe of the photos shows the mold. I'm sorry. There they are. The existing conditions of the former employee's bathroom has significant mold issues and mold report survey has been prepared, and at this time, Nathan O'Leary, an environmental consultant with Hart and Hickman, will address the bathroom issues.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity here. As was alluded, we did complete a indoor air quality and mold survey in relation to this particular structure. And I mean, even without our specific findings, I think it's fairly evident that there is some water damage in this structure, which is creating the mold spore issue. One of the components of the mold survey we complete is mold cannot grow without a moisture source. So one of the first things we try to do is to identify where the moisture is coming from. And in this particular structure, it looked like there was multiple contributing factors. And the first one, it appears that even though it's a somewhat newer membrane roof, it does appear that the roofing systems are leaking somewhat substantially. And exactly where it's coming from on the roof is not certain, but looking at the roof decking, it's pretty evident that just by the amount of water damage and damage to the wood material, there is a water issue coming from the roof. A second issue we identified was on the actual exterior of the building as well, in the brick grout. The grout has some fairly significant cracking. And during precipitation events, that does provide pathways for moisture to enter the wall cavities and then not sufficiently dry out, which can lead to the proliferation of mold spores. And then the third somewhat significant moisture source, we believe, is when we were doing the indoor air quality surveys, the relative humidity inside the structure was higher than what is typically recommended, and it was up over 70%. And so this doesn't allow the building materials to dry out sufficiently, and that moisture just kind of sits there, and that also can contribute to mold spore proliferation. And so our findings were kind of consistent with this water issue. We did have a number of mold genre that indicate water damage. Specifically, there's two spores called Aspergillus and Penicillium. They typically won't be found in indoor environments unless there is some water damage present. And once there's water present, building materials such as wood and sheetrock, insulation, those sort of things provide a carbon source. So with water, appropriate temperature, and then that carbon source, it allows that mold to proliferate. The other significant finding was that we did see spores of Stachybotrys in interior spaces, and that's concerning. Stachybotrys does have kind of the reputation. It's better known as black mold, and this is what leads to the common building sickness syndrome. So, different people react differently to it, but it can cause fairly significant allergic reactions to people that are sensitive to those spores. And then, part of the mold survey, there's not, I guess, what you would call like regulatory standards for fungal spores. So what you'd like to do is compare what's inside to what is in the natural environment. And because of the time of year that this was conducted, there is a lot of just natural mold spores in the air. And one of the main ones was basidiospores, which can also be indicative of moisture inside building materials, and it was viewed inside at comparable concentrations. But the big difference is that the spores I previously mentioned, Aspergillus and Penicillium, they were present in outdoor air, which is expected. They occur naturally. However, they are at significantly lower counts, roughly outside, in maybe the less than 1,000 spore counts. And then interior, we are seeing that spore count up over 32,000 spore counts per area. So it just kind of is another line of evidence that there is a moisture issue, that there is a significant mold issue, and it's not really safe in its current condition for occupation.
Thank you. If you can go to the additions on the city garage now, photos. So in addition to the accessory structures on site, there are two additions. There's the first one that have been added to the city garage building. This first one is built in 1955. It's a two-story addition to the rear of city garage. It includes residential siding, modern storefront windows, and painted CMU block. It's out of scale with the primary structure of the city garage, and the ashlar paver, I think there's some on the other side. If you can go to the next photo, is proposed to be salvaged. There's some over on that back side there. Although that portion with the cupboard there will be maintained, but there's some over on the other side of the building. The other addition proposed to be removed is on the north side of city garage, and it's the radio room. Keep going. There we are. You can see the appendage on the left side. It's on the north side of the city garage building. It was built in 1965 as a radio room addition. It's painted CMU block. Windows do not match the primary structure. It has a residential appearance and is out of character with the primary structure. The applicant proposes to demolish these 5 accessory buildings and structures and 2 additions to City Place garage site, excuse me, and salvage the ashlar pavers for reuse on future. The city garage and the fire drill tower are to remain. And in summary, and in the spirit of the site's history of change and adaptation for different uses over time, we are seeking to modify the site to correspond with the neighborhood's evolution into a mixed-use residential, retail, restaurant, and entertainment destination. Modification of the site uses will allow for better integration with the city's plans of the abandoned railroad and the future belt along the property's western frontage. In addition, we propose removing all accessory buildings and structures on site, allowing for the addition of a new building that will address the belt line with an appropriate frontage and more harmonious with 2 primary historic structures. We're committed to reusing the granite ashlar pavers as part of the future design of the site, continuing the legacy of reuse. A separate COA or certificate of appropriateness will be submitted for a new structure to support the preservation of the 2 contributing buildings, city garage and the fire drill tower. We also request the reduction of the 365-day delay period be minimized for the beneficial use of the site. We appreciate your time and consideration of the major certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the outlined accessory structures in addition, and we'll be glad to answer any questions the commission may have regarding this request. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to go ahead and exercise a little chair prerogative here and just ask a couple of questions just to make sure that I and my colleagues understand which buildings are which with respect to the marked up demolition plan. If we could just maybe quickly go through the pictures one more time and tie those to the demolition plan, that would be helpful.
Okay.
So the demolition plan, Carla, is on page 10 of 52.
There we go. Okay. So where the pointer is, the arrow right now that you're pointing to the long, yes, that building, that is the signal shop. That's a non-contributing building. It has a low ceiling, CMU blocks.
Are you able to give me a page number and I can switch to that photo?
I don't have that.
Okay.
Hold on.
I might, Carla. I think it's page 12 of 52, if I'm not mistaken.
There we go.
Okay, we got that one.
Okay. The next one to the north is the signs and marking shop. That is listed as a contributing building because of the ashlar blocks.
Is that page 20 of 52?
Let's see.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can see it's got some block windows, storefront windows, doors, and partial ashlar block and stone there, pavers.
Okay, if we can go back 10.
That is the metal shed. It is a non-contributing building. It has no historic value.
Is that 13 of 52?
22. I think it's on
okay.
page.
Yes, that's a shed.
Okay. Thank you.
Want to go? Yes, there we go. That is the pole shed. It's covered parking. It is also non-contributing.
Okay, I know which one that is.
Okay.
You want to give me the page number for just for the record?
Yep, 25 of 52.
If we can come, if you go south of the pole shed, this is the first the addition of the radio room, 1965 edition. And I think that was one of the last images, photos.
Yep, I think it's pages
20.
23 and 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next addition is on the back, the two-story addition on the back of the city garage. It was built in 1955. I don't have a page.
I think it's 17 and 18.
There's part of it. There's one side of it on the back side. And then next one will show the other side. And then the last one is the small building there to the south is the former employee's bathroom that was built with the ashlar pavers from the former Durham streets. We're proposing to salvage. Also has the steel doors, block windows, and modern light fixtures. And as you've heard, has significant mold issues.
Okay. One last question, just so I'm clear. I think I now understand. Page 13 of 52 is just the right-hand side of the first building that we looked at, right? The former Board of Elections building.
Can you go to page 13? Let me see what that is. Correct.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I think I've got it straight now. I hope the other commissioners do as well. And with that, I will open up the floor to other commissioners who may have questions for the applicant.
I assume you're going to come back to us with plans to fill in where you've torn things down.
Yes, there will be a separate certificate of appropriateness for a proposed building that will address the belt line and be more complementary to the city garage.
What steps will be taken to preserve those granite pavers if demolition proceeds before you're ready to construct on the site?
They would have to clean them to get the mortar off and then store them until reuse in the construction of the new project.
Are there current storage plans? Is there a facility identified or a location identified?
Jeff, would you like to speak?
Hi, good morning. This is Jeff Kurtz. I work with the development team. We're still identifying exactly which contractor we would work with. That would be part of the specifications that we would put into their contract, is to remove all of those, clean them, and then store them off-site safely until they're ready to be incorporated into the design. So until we have the contractor identified, there's no specific storage location determined.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
I have one question. Do you know how you will use the pavers? Or is that still something in question?
It's still preliminary, but the intent at the time is to restore them into some type of roadway pavers, back to the original design intent of how they were originally used.
Thank you.
Are they pavers or are they the granite curbs that have been cut into blocks? Or do you know?
It's my understanding they're the pavers that were part of the original Durham streets that they then used to own the accessory buildings.
Other commissioners with questions for the applicant? Okay.
Jonathan,
Okay, Jonathan, go for it.
So what I understand is no plans are yet, you don't have any plans yet for a new construction or anything on that end, and you will be moving forward later in the future to do that.
Correct.
So why do you want to demolish it right now?
Understanding there's a time period, and we're asking that it not be 365-day delay, but just thinking we need to get this in the process as soon as possible so that we could move forward with understanding that we do have a project to move forward with.
So why are you asking for 300 to shorten to 365 days?
Excuse me,
yeah, go ahead.
Cindy, do you mind if I jump in?
No, please.
Just to clarify, so we have actually submitted a site plan COA for the construction of a new building on the site. That was submitted. We have not received any comments back, but the plans are progressing. They're relatively kind of schematic, as we expect to receive some comments back from the HPC regarding those plans. But we are moving forward with the design, with the anticipated construction for middle of next year. And, based off of our permitting process, we're looking at beginning construction somewhere around summer or early Q3 of 2022.
So that was submitted with an architect, correct?
That is correct. The architect has submitted those plans, Stuart, and is the landscape architect on that. So we have submitted the COA number 2. I think that just went in late last month.
So before, when I think it was Mark Bouchard, he asked about use of the pavers. Maybe I missed something there. Is it good? Where's the reuse of the pavers after demolition?
The reuse of the pavers are anticipated to be within the site paving materials. So we're looking at using these granite cobblestones that were originally part of the street paving around the area to bring them back in to create a space in between the existing city garage building and the proposed new construction. We're creating what would be a pedestrian walkway and an access alley through that site. And we're proposing at this point to reuse the stone structures for that paving material.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners with questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing no other questions, I would like to give Mr. Miller an opportunity to provide whatever evidence he has in opposition to the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Miller, and I'm the president of Preservation Durham, which is the trade name for the Historic Preservation Society of Durham. I am a licensed attorney and have been for 40 years. In my professional career, I was the head of the Attorney General's real estate section for 30 years. I also am a non-professional architectural historian in the city of Durham and have researched and written about literally dozens and dozens of Durham houses and other structures. With regard to Preservation Durham is an organization, a nonprofit organization organized under the laws of North Carolina in the mid-1970s. And our mission, of course, is to preserve the history and architectural heritage of the city and county of Durham. I also want to make sure that the commission knows that the Preservation Durham has historic preservation covenants on this property. They were granted by the city of Durham in 1999 and are recorded in book 2612, page 867 of the Durham County Register of Deeds. The covenants are covenants organized under North Carolina General Statutes 121-34. And I lay all that down as record groundwork for standing in the case. I ask that the commission take official notice of the landmark status file in the possession of the city of Durham, and that you receive that into evidence. In this case, it's often referred to in the application and in the staff report. I also ask that the board take official notice of the National Register nomination for the Foster and West Gear Street National Register Historic District as it relates to the city garage property. Portions of that have also been submitted by the applicant, and I would like for all of that document as it relates to this property to be received into evidence in the case. And then finally, I would ask Carla to confirm that in fact a new certificate of appropriateness application for new construction on this property has been submitted, and that at the current time it is anticipated that that will come before the commission at its meeting in December. Is that correct, Carla?
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. That is correct. I also want to refer you to the third attachment of the staff report that includes the landmark staff report that you mentioned.
All right, thank you very much, Carla. This is a complicated application, and I think during the presentation by the applicant, getting clear in everyone's mind which buildings we're talking about at any given moment is difficult. I mean, we have essentially 7 impacted structures, some of them freestanding buildings and a couple of them are additions. And so it becomes difficult at times to talk about them and to keep what is said in one's memory at all times. And so I just wanted to talk about that. Preservation Durham is concerned about this property and also its historic context. One of the things that worries us a little bit in evaluating whether or not the structures on this property should be demolished is separating those questions from questions about what will go on the property. What is the overall plan? We realize that these cases don't have to be considered together, but they can be considered together. And given the complexity of this case and the importance of this property, we would like the opportunity as advocates for historic preservation in Durham for more time to work with these developers about not only the proposal to demolish buildings on the site in this COA, but also to look at the proposal for new buildings on the site in the COA that is coming to you. And for that reason, and without surrendering the floor at the current time, we request that this case be continued from today's date to November, and that would give us more time. So I'll leave that request standing for the board to rule on at the appropriate time. I apologize for that. That's what happens when you turn 65. Everybody wants to sell you insurance. Good Lord. I apologize. So essentially, and to boil it down, Preservation Durham wants to be reasonable about the site. We agree that the garage building and the tower are the most important historic structures on the site, but they are not the only important structures on the site. We're worried about their context, and we're worried about anything that would diminish the site as it exists now, without having a clear picture of what's coming in the future. But having said those things, if the continuance that we have requested has not been granted, this is what our position is with regard to the application. First, the non-contributing low building to the rear of the property, the sign shop that was not long ago the headquarters of the Durham Board of Elections. We have no objection to the demolition of that property. It's non-contributing. Second, with regard to the non-contributing shed-roofed cement board clad building north of the former BOA building, which is represented in photograph 2, we don't object to the demolition of that building. 3, with regard to the non-contributing metal 2-bay garage shed, which is represented in photograph 11 in the application, we do not object to the demolition of that building. Likewise, with regard to the non-contributing pole-mounted awning shed that is represented in photograph 14 of the application, we don't object to the demolition of that building. Then with regard to the contributing small 1965 addition that is depicted in photograph 12 in the application, we do not object to the demolition of that building. However, I do have a question for the applicant concerning the application. So thank you, Carla, for showing the building in photograph 12. So what is depicted here is the garage building, which has the Spanish colonial revival parapet, and then extending from it is a one-story brick wing, and extending from that is a what appears to be stucco-clad small kind of box. It is our understanding from the application what is desired to be demolished is just that stucco-clad box and not the brick extension from the original building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate that. And then finally, with regard to the contributing one-level building made up partially of granite cobblestones, we do not object to the demolition of that building. This building is depicted in the application in photograph number 9, that building. I mean, we have concerns for it, and we condition our consent to the, or assent, I guess we're not in a position to consent, our assent to the demolition of that building based upon the understanding that those granite pavers will be reused appropriately on the site. Now, with regard to the remaining buildings that are implicated in this application, we do object to the demolition of the contributing granite bathroom building, which is depicted in photograph number 3 of the application. We'll pause while, there it is. So that building. And we heard that it's got a leaky roof and deterioration of its roof deck, and that it's got moisture infiltration. The building is disused, and it's one of those things. But we also point out that it is a tiny building. It is an older building. It was built in the 1940s. We think the purpose of this building is especially pertinent to the site and to the history of Durham. This building was constructed by the city of Durham so that the city employees who worked at the garage building, black and white, would not have to share bathroom facilities. One of the bathrooms was for black employees. One of the bathrooms was for white employees. Preservation Durham increasingly is becoming alarmed at the rapidly vanishing architectural and historic evidence of the African American experience in Durham. And by way of an illustration, for years and years, Preservation Durham has done what we call the Civil Rights Tour in the downtown area, a walking tour in the downtown area. Increasingly over time, and then rapidly increasingly recently, it is a tour of buildings that no longer exist. And it is worrisome. We will note also that what remains of the history of the African American experience in Durham, it has a tendency not to be grand structures, but small structures like this with poignant stories. We are terribly concerned that this building might be demolished and then the story that it tells erased from Durham's architectural and historic landscape. I know that the applicant has suggested that the building, those pavers could be taken down and cleaned and used in pavement. I will suggest to the Preservation Commission that you might as well buy new pavers and use them. That would so divorce the story that this little building tells from what will continue on the site, that you might as well just demolish it and forget about it. We don't think it should be demolished. We know that this building is smaller than 200 square feet. It is a solid masonry building. So on the other side of those pavers are bricks. You could completely gut this building, properly waterproof it and roof it, and create a new build, a sound building. You could remediate all of the moisture infiltration problems and the mold problems. With a building this scale, it's just not that big a deal. We would hate to see this building leave this site, and inconsistent with standards for historic preservation, we think it is best that it be kept in this original location. We are open, however, because we want to be reasonable, open to working out a plan, perhaps of moving the building or deconstructing it from at this site, and perhaps moving it to another site close by on the property and rebuilding it. Again, it's a tiny building. It's simple, it's basic. It's just not that big a deal. The problem that the applicants have with the building as it is today is it's in the way. I've had an opportunity to review the new application. You have not. I realize that. We only learned about it Friday, but we're grateful that the developers and Carla sent it to us. But this building is in the way. And if we can work out a compromise, we want to be practical preservationists, but the building's story is too important to have it go away. And then finally, with regard to the addition, which is depicted in photograph number 6. And Carla, thank you for scrolling to these photographs because it makes it so much easier for people to understand what they're talking about. There you go, that building. And of course, there are several photographs. This is an addition off the back of the original garage building. This building was built in the middle 1950s. We object to the demolition of this building. But we also have questions about it because it's not clear from the application what is to be demolished. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, may I put a question to the developers?
Sure, you can ask the question.
Thank you very much. So Jeff, can you tell me when you talk about this addition, the original city garage building, as I understand it, was a building that had kind of a notch in the back of it, and that notch got filled in. That shallow notch got filled in part by the creation of this addition. So when I look at this, you can see how the city garage building is shaped, and when I look at what is colored red here, which is that brick block structure with its connecting wing. If that's all that's going to be removed, we still are nervous about it. Or are you planning to take more? Because the discussion of the use and removal of brick pavers and connected with this demolition is not clear to us. Can you confirm that what you would like to demolish and what the request pending before the commission today is just the area that is shaded in red?
Yes, that is confirmed. Just the area that is shaded in red is intended to be demolished.
And are there photographs in your application that can help me understand what brick paving materials might be removed?
No, I don't know that there are photos.
Can then you just describe to me where those brick pavers are and how they're implicated in the portion of the building that is depicted in red here?
Yeah, I guess I apologize. I'm somewhat confused by that question. Our primary intent was to reuse the cobblestone pavers that are shown elsewhere.
Okay,
I don't.
So
if I go ahead and just sort of moderate here, if we go to page 19 of 52, Carla. Is the question that where these pavers are in relation to?
Yes, that's very helpful. We're looking at photograph number 8 from the application. And what part of the building depicted in this photograph is to be demolished? That's what we want to be clear about.
The 2-story addition.
Okay, but not the area where the brick pavers have been used as part of the infill of the notch.
No.
That's correct.
All right, thank you very much. That's very helpful, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. With regard to the 2 buildings that I've talked about, the addition and the bathroom building, it's the position of Preservation Durham that a delay of less than 365 days is not appropriate. The criteria for reducing the delay is extreme hardship or deprivation of all beneficial use of the property or structures as a result of the delay. And I don't think either of those criteria are even closely approached. This building is in use now, and while the bathroom building has been allowed to deteriorate, it has been allowed to deteriorate while under the ownership and control of the applicants. It's a tiny building. It could easily be put back into some beneficial use. The delay would not deny that. And so for those reasons, again, to recap, we urge first that the commission continue this case for at least 1 month so that Preservation Durham may work earnestly with the developers. And I think it's fair to say, I don't want the commission to think that our relationship with these developers is adversarial. It is anything but that. We have spoken frankly with the developers and we have shared our relative positions. Nobody is surprised by our presentation today. We want to work this out. We do see this as a site that needs to be redeveloped. But we do think that it should be done, that if we can come together with the developer for a better design for this property at a meeting after a reasonable continuance, it's better than imposing a delay. It would be better to have no delays imposed at all than imposing a delay today that we would have to undo later. In other words, we'd like to try to fix the problems we see with this property first before we take action rather than after we take action. But if that continuance isn't granted, we are not opposing the demolition of the buildings that I described to you, but with the exception of this addition depicted in photograph 8 and the bathroom building, which is depicted in photograph 3. We think these are important and to the site and to the story that it tells and to the history of Durham. And so,
Planning Department, just want to clarify, we need 2 months for a
I'm
continuous.
sorry, I can't understand you very well.
We need a 2-month continuous minimum for continuance, 2 months.
Well, that's not, I appreciate the staff's position, but I note that that's not in the rules. And we don't want to delay unnecessarily, but if the earliest that the new construction COA is coming is December, we don't see the hurt in it. And then I will say, Mr. Chairman, because the position that we've taken has lots of parts, I have submitted to the applicants and to Ms. Rosenberg essentially the same thing that I've read to you in written form, so that you will not have to rely on memory of what I've said or the notes that you have maybe taken in the margins of the application document. And with that, I appreciate for the opportunity to appear before you to testify and to state the position of Preservation Durham. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Miller? Okay, hearing none, I would like to give the applicant an opportunity to rebut.
I can begin. Go ahead, Jeff, you go first. Go ahead.
I would say, you know, I certainly appreciate Ms. Miller's position. I appreciate the conversations that we have had to date and look forward to working with him, Preservation Durham, as we discuss the new construction that will take place on this site and work through the appropriateness of what we've presented in the architectural kind of direction of those plans. Specifically related to a couple of these points and to his opposition regarding the demolition of the two structures. The building that is shown here, you know, we think that this structure is out of scale and context with the other building, the main city garage building. We, upon studying it, did not find any significant sort of architectural characteristics of the building, and felt that the demolition of this would be appropriate and would actually help to sort of accentuate the main city garage building, keeping it within scale and the original construction of that structure. Regarding the smaller bathroom, we are in agreement that it is a small structure, it is a very small structure. That the size of that structure really makes it difficult for reuse of any kind in today's environment, for it to be anything other than just storage or, you know, perhaps some sort of just kind of a relic of old days past. That being said, despite its size, it does have a 6-figure price tag for the renovation that would be associated with that, with the remediation of the mold, the new roof structure, and the cleaning of any of the brick and the updating of HVAC and electrical that's in there. So it's not insignificant, despite the fact that it is small. I will say, you know, just in complete honesty, between you know, the Preservation Commission and with Mr. Miller and Preservation Durham, he is correct in that the location of that building is problematic. I know that Mr. Miller has worked with the building owner on previous plans for the redevelopment of this site and has looked at plans. Some of those plans looked at acquiring through some sort of easement or acquisition from the city of Durham, part of the land that is designated as the belt line to the rear of the building. And the acquisition of that land was to make further development and redevelopment of this site feasible. And part of that, you know, I know that there was opposition regarding the acquisition of that land from Durham. In lieu of that, not having the ability to acquire land beyond the property line, the location of that bathroom structure with the requirements for fire truck access and egress makes it extremely difficult to put any new construction on that site that meets today's modern footprints and space requirements. Which is why we have proposed utilizing the materials for that building elsewhere on site and trying to preserve the architectural pieces of it as opposed to the building within its current site and context. Outside of that, as I said, we look forward to working with them. We would ask that we not be continued for 1 month or 2 months. We do believe that the time between now and our presentation, or when we're expected to come before the commission for the second COA for the site plan, leaves plenty of time for us to be able to work with Preservation Durham and other constituents regarding the design of the future project. And we feel confident that we'll be able to do that and come up to an agreeable solution.
Mr. Kurtz, thank you very much. Do the commissioners have any remaining questions for the applicant before we close the public hearing and discuss? Jonathan.
Surprising. Jonathan, concern, you said that it's 6 figures to fix the bathroom building. Do you have any estimates you can share with us?
I received something yesterday late afternoon, and I was not able to get that to Ms. Rosenberg prior to this meeting. But I do have something that was provided by a local contractor that is a rough order of magnitude costs that has that at over $100,000 for the retrofit of that building. I can send it to you.
Retrofit or repair? Sorry, I need to understand the retrofit or repair.
The repair, so that includes removing all of the drywall, remediating the mold, taking off and cleaning all of the brick, putting the brick, or I'm sorry, the stone material, masonry material back, new HVAC, bringing electrical up to any sort of code required lighting and electric and plumbing.
Is it possible to share that with us? I don't know, Chair Bouchard.
As an evidentiary matter, I'd probably need to turn to Krista to see whether or not we could receive into evidence materials that were not previously shared in advance of today's hearing.
Krista Kukuro, City Attorney's Office. It has been the policy of the quasi-judicial boards for the city, due to the virtual setting that we're operating in, to have those items submitted in advance. That said, it's a policy that would be a departure from the policy. I would not recommend it, but it is ultimately up to the chair and the commission.
Mr. Kurtz, would it be difficult to transmit that estimate to city staff?
No, it's in spreadsheet form. I can send it on to Carla if that works, and she can send it to you.
I would like to receive that into evidence.
Sure, I will send that. I'll send that after this meeting.
While we're waiting for that to come through, do the commissioners have any additional questions for the applicant in connection with the rebuttal testimony we just heard? Well, let's proceed then to close the public hearing and discuss amongst the commissioners. So obviously a lot of moving pieces with this particular application, 7 different structures slated for demolition. I don't know if there is a good or bad way, a more efficient way of dealing with the 7 structures. It seems like the likely pushback that we're going to hear, certainly concerns that I have relate to the bathroom structure and its history, and perhaps some of the other structures. Maybe the addition is going to be an issue for some. Is there anyone maybe to organize the discussion, is there anyone who has concerns about the demolition of the non-contributing freestanding structures? And Jonathan, go ahead.
Okay. My question is not concerning the non-contributing, but it's more to staff, to Carla. What happens to landmark designation once any of the buildings or contributing, non-contributing, what, you understand the question, I think, by now.
So there would, if the historic integrity of the landmark were deemed to be compromised, then the city would need to take action to delist the landmark. But it would be a question of whether these accessory structures and additions, if they were to be demolished, would that compromise the integrity of the landmark?
Thank you. Is that the intention of the applicants?
The landmark, historic landmark, or the city garage building and the fire drill tower, and the applicant is proposing for those to remain and not to be, nothing.
So they will be parceled out. They will be parceled out of or subdivided out of for the new construction. Is that your intention?
Currently, any of the other buildings are not on the local historic landmarks. It's only those two buildings, which we're not proposing to demolish.
So none of them, the bathroom nor but it's connected. The last building, I think it was number 6, that it's connected to the main garage building.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. All of the structures are listed as part of this landmark. They're all included in the staff report, and they have contributing and non-contributing significance to the landmark. And the land, both the buildings and the land, are landmarked for this particular landmark.
Since that is the case, excuse me, Wonder Waiters, I think it is clear that Tom has done with extreme due diligence and careful analysis of each designation and what is appropriate to do with it. I strongly support the work that Tom has done with this and the desire for a continuance.
Tad?
I agree. I support what Tom is proposing.
Support as well.
And so I'm hearing that Wanda, Tad, and Jonathan, by way of straw poll only, would be in support of a 2-month continuance as proposed by Tom Miller. Do any of the remaining commissioners have strong opinions to the contrary and would want to move forward with consideration of this application today?
I support, but I forgot to say this. I'm supposed to say this, but that I am the executive director of Preservation Durham, and I want to let the commission and citizens know that I did not have communications or participate in board communications about this case. So my decision regarding this case is impartial and separate from that of my board. Thank you.
So for the benefit of the applicant, it is not my policy to foist upon any applicant a continuance. It is always my practice to suggest to the applicant that continuances might be in the best interest of the application long-term, so that various issues can be addressed and the commission can feel comfortable proceeding after those issues are addressed. We had another one of those cases come up today. And so I'm not going to force this upon the applicant. I would be curious to know whether or not there would be an interest on the part of the applicant to take Mr. Miller up on his offer to continue the conversation and to continue this hearing to December and have it considered at the same time or one after the other, I guess, in conjunction with the site plan that's been submitted, that be part of its own COA hearing that month.
Mr. Miller and I had this conversation yesterday, and our concern, as he pointed out, and that as I understand it, is that Preservation Durham and Historic Preservation Commission work independently of each other. The reason that we objected and do object to continuation of this is because of the ability of the Preservation Commission to still instill a 365-day moratorium or a waiting period on the demolition, even if we have the meeting with Preservation Durham and are able to work through some of these issues that he raised on today's call. We have a timeline for construction and are eager to get that moving. And I'm very concerned that, if we were to continue this, that we would still wind up running into a significant delay, the 365-day delay at the December meeting.
So I'm hearing from the applicant a desire to move forward with today's application and for a vote on today's application. And the question then becomes, it would seem to me, what are we voting on? Because if we vote on the entire package and can basically consider all 7 structures, the demolition of all 7 structures as one, my sense is there's going to be some pushback from this commission and a desire to preserve certain of the buildings and impose a delay because of their historic significance. Why don't I go ahead and, before I presume as much, ask my fellow commissioners, again, reclosing the public hearing, which of these structures, commissioners, are you most concerned about? And why do you think a delay of up to 365 days is appropriate with the?
I think the bathroom building and the components that were added to the original building tell the story of that property, add to the historic character of that property, and give it a historic patina. And I think that's why that property was landmarked that way. I don't have trouble with the stuff on the outer perimeter. And the stuff I had to vote today, it'd be a 365-day delay.
Tad, for clarification, you are concerned about the addition that is reflected in photographs 6 and 7, pages 17 and 18?
Anything attached to the building and the bathrooms.
Okay. Are there any commissioners who are concerned about demolition of any of the other structures not expressed by Tad as areas of his concern?
I have just a slight delineation, but Krista, is your hand up? Did you want to say something? I'll let you go.
Thanks, April. Krista Kruger, City Attorney's Office. We were talking about this as staff, and I do just want to mention one thing, which is that I think it would be acceptable and appropriate if the board, I think this is the direction you're heading, Chair Bouchard, but to sort of make a distinction based on the criteria for the demolition delay between these structures and apply a delay to some of them and then reduce it for others of them. But again, that distinction would need to be based on the criteria, which I think have already been articulated, but I'll repeat. The delay is reduced where the owner will suffer extreme hardship or be permanently deprived of all beneficial use, or the commission shall reduce the delay where it finds that a building or site has no special significance or value towards maintaining the character.
I disagree with that, and there's a reason, if I may. Sorry, of course I can't disagree with you because you're the council. But if there's a criteria, if we want to keep the integrity of the landmark, and now we're separating it, So one comes, demolishes 9 buildings, and then waits another year for the 2, or they can't do anything, and now they need to think with us, or really use the time, and don't have the advantage of demolishing other buildings. I also don't know if the applicant understands what it means to them to lose the landmark designation, which is something that can happen from what I understand in the situation. So running forward, allowing some kind of demolition, allowing the trucks to come down and demolish can be to the detriment of the property in Durham, in my opinion.
Would Carla or Krista, would the landmark status of the land and the entire property potentially be threatened by, say, immediate demolition of the non-contributing building that used to house the elections board, the garage shed? Or would the landmark status be at risk from demolition?
Oh, Rosenberg Planning Department. We haven't officially discussed this, and we would take a lot of material into consideration. I don't know if I'm even allowed to give my sense on that, like representing the department on that. But I don't know.
Commissioner Johnson, who gets to make that decision? Is that something we as the HPC, do we vote to remove a landmark status, or is that something done by the city?
I mean, I think staff could initiate it, but you would be a part of that process because you're part of every landmark process. You would recommend approval or not to the city council.
Okay, so my thoughts on this is that I think the Preservation Durham representative made a great point about the bathrooms as part of the story. As for the built environment, historic buildings are part of our storytelling artifact in the environment, and I think that I think I would be okay with all of the other buildings, even the other additions, being demolished with this application, but with the exception of the historic bathrooms. And I think remediation is possible. And so maybe some work will have to be done and they'll have to figure out a use for it. I guess the only concern is that I'm sorry, Jeff mentioned that keeping that building there on site where it is now, they will run into code problems when it comes to when they're ready to construct the new building on the site. So I think that's my only concern, but I do like the idea of this particular building continuing the storytelling of this whole entire site. So the garage and the tower are the most important features, but also this bathroom is supplements and adds to the story. I think everything else, even the addition, I'm okay with the rest of that being demolished. And I wanted to know is if we had to vote today, and could they modify the application on the spot to maybe not demolish the bathrooms, and we will be okay with that? All right, so that's just a question I'm posing for the rest of the commission.
Anybody else? Wanda?
Okay, I concur with that. I thought I'd clearly heard Tom give those options of either moving the building, or I took some notes on that, or if it was in the way, or rebuilding it. In the presentation that he made, and it was real clear for me to also understand that he said that this had been it had been non-adversarial throughout this whole process and discussions. I do agree that that one building, out of his presentation and in your comments also, Ms. Johnson, that it's important that if that can be changed at this time, then it would make things a lot clearer to look at.
This is Laura Fieselman. I stepped away for some of the discussion here, but April, what you just outlined resonates with me too.
Yes. Mhm.
My sense is that, and we can certainly straw poll it if we need to, there's probably a majority of board members present for this hearing today who want to impose a delay, at least with respect to the bathroom building and perhaps other buildings. I am comfortable moving forward with Krista's recommendation to split the buildings between those that we don't believe are contributing to the landmark status and that we don't have reservations about demolishing now, and then imposing limitations on other buildings. But I'd be curious to know whether or not there is sufficient support for that sort of bifurcation from the commission. Or if alternatively, the commission believes that if we're going to impose any sort of delay, it needs to apply basically universally to all 7 structures that are slated for demolition in the application.
I don't think it needs to be for all 7 structures.
I'm with the bifurcation, with the 365 for the bathrooms, and maybe we can figure out how during that time, use that time period to figure that out. But as for the other structures, I don't require a long delay for those.
Laura, I saw a thumbs up from you, so I presume that you're in favor of bifurcation. Ted?
I still struggle with cleansing the original building. I don't have any problem with the stuff on the perimeter. That's where I'm at.
Tom?
I don't prefer to separate them out.
Okay. Jonathan?
I don't think the applicant is I think that we're not. I don't have enough information. I don't want to separate anything. If anything, I agree with Tad, but I prefer not separating the buildings.
I think we should probably consider then a motion related to treating the entire application as one. And if somebody has a strong opinion about the amount of delay that should be imposed and would like to present that position, please do so.
If we impose the maximum delay and Preservation Durham and the developer come to an agreement, I assume they can come back and we can revisit that, just as we did recently with another project.
Is there anybody in favor of imposing a delay of less than 365 days and would like to advocate for that position?
No, but I agree with that again with Tad. But it doesn't have to be also Preservation Durham. If they find a solution that can that they think that can work with the Historic Preservation Commission, I don't think we should ever put a criteria of Preservation Durham in. But if something that can satisfy the commission, it could be early down the road.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of less than 365. Just, I would tie it more to how much time the parties need to try to come up with a solution, not just go to 365. So whatever Jeff and Tom thought that they needed to explore their options is what I would have went for.
I agree with,
Right.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Tom. I don't know if 365 is,
I'm sorry,
If-
but if we early this, then, and they don't get to agreement, we just give them a sort of time. So what's the point of doing that?
Well, I'm not focused on whether they agree or don't agree. I just want to make sure they have an opportunity to hear each other out and have time to see if they can find a solution, whether they find one or not. I just want to make sure that they have time to do their due diligence, hear each other out, explore options.
If we apply a 365 delay and then the group comes together, cooks up a solution and brings it back to us, can we override ourselves sooner than 365 days?
Yeah, I mean, we just did that.
So I've heard 2 votes for something less than 365. I say votes and not really votes. 2 opinions for 365, 2 for less than 365. Laura, Wanda, do you have any thoughts about the duration of delay that is appropriate under the circumstances?
The duration of delay, I can't really say now that I have any particular concerns about that. I don't know where my hearing is different, but I clearly heard that earlier when Tom presented that there would be some further discussions on the specifics that were presented, and that's where my mind is. And,
thank you. Laura?
I lean towards 365 with an invitation to bring us a solution that satisfies the parameters as soon as you can.
I'm going to go ahead, having received from Carla the spreadsheet that Mr. Kurtz had sent to her, and make the call that it should be admitted into evidence. I want the commission to have full information on this application in light of all the various issues involved with this application. And so, Carla, I am authorizing you to share that spreadsheet with the rest of the commission.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I object.
Objection overruled. Carla, you can put up on the screen. And I will direct reopen the public hearing for a brief question to Mr. Kurtz. Mr. Kurtz, what is the name of the contractor that provided you with this estimate?
This was by Clancy and Faye's Construction.
Okay.
And I should note that, they looked at the existing building and the photos that were taken as part of the remediation and the study that was done by Hart Hickman. There are no plans at this point, for a renovation or design. So they've done this as sort of rough order of magnitude pricing based off of their experience, the area and the square footage of the existing structure.
So for the record, line number 7, 10, sorry, not 10. Yeah. So we have replacement of concrete, new CMU walls, stone removal. There's over 30,000, at least just from looking at this, that are not relevant to repair. This is a redoing.
Part of this, based off of the mold that is there, their anticipation is that some of the existing wall structure would need to come out, that it would be replaced, rebuilt, and then reapplied with the stone that is there on the wall.
A contractor has told you that they think that stone needs to be replaced for mold remediation?
They said that everything, if there was mold in there, this was the this is what we received yesterday as their scope of work for the retrofit of this building.
Thank you.
Well, we don't even know what the purpose of this building would be. So things like $6,000 for vanities, you know, it may end up being a small office or, you know, some of this seems irrelevant to the main question here.
I'm going to go ahead and reclose the public hearing. And I'm once again going to invite the applicant to consider whether or not a continuance is in its best interests. I think there probably is sufficient support for a motion that would impose a 365-day delay with respect to the demolition that is proposed. And I'm prepared to make that motion and see if I'm right about that. But I'm also prepared to offer a motion consistent with Mr. Miller's recommendation to continue this case for 2 months. And I think it is important to get the applicant's input as to how it would prefer to proceed.
You know, we would respectfully ask that we be able to come up with something that is not the 365 days. You know, I appreciate the suggestion that we give ample time for us to have a discussion. I think that if we said 6 months, you know, that's plenty of time for us to discuss with HPC and with Preservation Durham to come up with some alternatives. So we would request it to be 6 months. I think that, you know, we would also be open to, within that time frame, if there is a solution that we can come up with that everybody agrees upon, that we can present it again and perhaps get a reduction within the time frame that is agreed. But we would like to go ahead and move forward.
Mr. Chair, request to be heard on the question.
The question was really for the applicant, Mr. Miller, so I'm going to hold off on receiving any additional comments from you on it, unless you have anything to say about the duration of time you think it might take to work through these issues, potentially work through these issues with the applicant.
I just wanted to point it out to the commission that the point I believe that Ms. Cuccaro was making is that there are legal criteria for imposing and reducing the delay. The delay, a continuance you can create to allow parties to work together. The delay has to relate to the extreme hardship deprivation of use standards. And it's not, you can't set the delay in order to give people time to talk. And it was with that in mind that we made our original proposal.
Matt, if I can respond to that.
Yes, Tom, please.
The statute says that there may be a delay that's imposed by the commission, not that there shall. So we're not required to do any delay. And then it says if we do a delay, we shall reduce it to the extent that there is a hardship. And so I think in establishing what delay we as a commission choose, we can do 0, we can do 365, or we can do something in between there. And I was just suggesting that a logical way to establish what type of delay, given that the statute says during the delay, it's an opportunity for the owner and other parties to negotiate an outcome. So in the statute, it talks about this process where during the delay, these parties are going to go back and forth and see what they can do to preserve this site. So whatever amount of time that's going to take would seem to be a logical amount of delay. Sometimes it might be tremendous, and sometimes it might be very simple. And so to the extent that I get more information on what's actually going to happen during this delay, is this going to, our side's going to be working even if not together, does one side have a lot they have to accomplish? If that's going to take them a long time, I want to do 365 so that both sides have a chance. If it's not, then I don't want to just do 365 because I want that building there, because I do want the building there. But if this is going to take them 3 months to get through this, and they either agree they reach an impasse, then I would vote, give them the 3 months, they'll figure it out, and then we'll move forward. So that's I'm trying to separate out my desire for the building not to come down with giving people the opportunity to do the work that they need to do to figure out a solution. It doesn't seem to me when I was looking at these materials that this is going to take a year for the parties to figure out. So I was in favor of something less than a year.
And I appreciate that. I think the rest of the commissioners do as well. The thing that I keep hearing though is that even if we were to impose a 365-day delay, there's nothing stopping the parties, including Mr. Miller at Preservation Durham, from working together and coming up with something that might be mutually advantageous and coming back to us and, having that 365-day period removed. So I'm not as concerned about the duration, given the fact that we would have that flexibility.
Yeah, I'm not that concerned about it because I do trust that the commission, if the parties come back and say that they had a chance to work on this and that they've reached an impasse, I do trust that the commission is just going to shorten that delay. I do worry though that we get into this situation where what we subjectively want to see just defaults us to doing these maximum delays and not really tying it into whether or not we're letting go of control and letting the parties have all the time that they need to figure this out because it's not our choice. And so sometimes I get the sense that it's clear what the commission wants and that we're just going with maximum delays because we're in denial that we don't have control over it. And so I'm trying to that's what I'm trying to separate out is my desire for that to stay and just to make sure I'm giving them enough time. And this stuff does take time. And we all know real estate in Durham takes time right now. So I do think a substantial delay would help the parties. I'm not in favor of just this sort of default, like I don't want it to come down, so I'm doing a year.
Jeff has asked for a 6-month continuance. Seems viable.
I would vote for that.
He asked for a delay, a 6-month delay, correct? Not a continuance.
I think it was a 6-month delay.
Delay, correct.
Well, let's do a quick straw poll. Would we get
something short? I'm willing to consider if this is something the applicants will a continuance, but counting the months of continuance into the 365 on my next vote, which means if we do if we decide on the delay of a year, then these continuance months will be counted into that year, which enables them to already have a date forward. Could be 3, 6 months, wherever they think is right. But at that point, they will not get a vote for me to continue for another year, but a year minus or whatever it is, minus the time for continuance. So they do get the chance to continuance and they're not afraid they lost the count from today.
I think I heard Mr. Kurtz express an interest in just having a vote today on a 180-day delay. Approval of the application with a 180-day delay. And it sounds like Tom would be in favor of that and Laura would be
in favor of that.
I'd be in favor of it too. 100.
I will add the caveat though that I would want to hear from Tom Miller as to whether or not he felt that 180 days would be sufficient for them to fully explore their options. That's really key to where I land on it.
Hang on, before we go there, Jeff, can you clarify, are you asking for a 180-day, or would you be satisfied with a 180-day delay or continuance?
I'm asking for approval with a 180-day delay for the construction.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mr. Miller, I'll reopen the public hearing very, very briefly. If you could just respond to Commissioner Kreger's question.
So I get what Commissioner Kreger is saying. This is something that troubles us constantly. And that's why our proposal to you was more nuanced and was building by building. However, I realize too that from the statute doesn't envision a 7-building application. It doesn't contemplate that. We view the delay that the statute contemplates as being different from a continuance to allow interested parties to talk. My board sent me here to ask for a 365-day delay on the addition and the bathroom. And I don't feel like I can change that, but I can tell you that we are completely committed to working with these parties. Now, we are new to RAM, but we have an established relationship with the owner of this property, the folks at Magnolia, and we value that. And I feel really good about the possibility that in a few weeks of meetings, that we can come up with something. That's why we would prefer to do that in the context of a continuance. Now, if the case were not, if you continued the case and it came up in December with the other case and we hadn't gotten anywhere and we were still arguing for a delay, I think it would be appropriate for you at that time to say, well, instead of a 365-day delay, we're going to give you a 300-day delay because you've already had, we're going to give, it's like time served, I suppose. That's not a very good analogy, and I don't really mean it that way, but that would be within the commission's sound discretion, I believe. So I appreciate the question. We view the delay as having broader purposes than the opportunity for Preservation Durham to work with interested parties. We believe a continuance is a more appropriate procedure for that.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Can we close?
If I could just suggest, it sounds like 180 days would work for the parties to do the discussions that they need, and the applicant could still bring this back up in a month or two and ask for it to be shortened because they might have already finished that process. So I would actually suggest that we're on the right path. We just had the wrong outer limit. 180 days seems acceptable to the applicant. And we all agree that if they reach the natural end of their discussions, this could be brought back onto the docket and we could lower it. So that's what I would suggest.
So I'm hearing, based on the straw polling we've been conducting here, is we've gone 3 votes for 180 days. Wanda, Tad, and Jonathan, would any of you be amenable to 180 as opposed to 365? Jonathan shaking his head no.
If they can come back, they can come back with the 360. I don't understand the 180 at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. Why not give them the whole amount?
Jonathan, if we're doing a delay, my straw poll goes to 365. If we're doing a continuance, then whenever the applicant wishes.
Okay. That I agree, and I agree to lower the timing afterwards as much as needed. So exactly like Laura just said.
Dad, you're sticking with 365?
Yeah, I don't know why we would tie their hands when they can come back if they get an agreement anytime.
Okay. Well, I think we've had sufficient discussion. This has been a complicated process, but I think I understand which way the winds are blowing, and I'm prepared to go ahead and make a motion to move things forward. Before doing so, if we could have a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Staff would recommend approval of the application with a 160-day delay. Or was it 180? I apologize. Just hoping that the reduction of delay doesn't compromise the good faith efforts of the applicant to actually save these buildings. Particularly the ones, since we're not bifurcating it, but staff is most interested in the washroom, the bathroom.
I'm going to make a motion. It is going to be for 365 simply because I do not believe there's sufficient support for 180 days. The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in the case COA 21-00068, 501 Washington Avenue, demolition of primary structures, the applicant is proposing to demolish 3 contributing accessory structures as well as 2 contributing ones. The commission has determined the accessory structure to possess sufficient historic value or structural integrity to preserve it. The commission has determined that the property owner has not shown substantive evidence of facing extreme hardship or of being permanently deprived of all beneficial use of or return from the property by virtue of a delay. Granite pieces will be salvaged from the structures for future use. The site will be stabilized with grass seed and straw following the demolition until future construction is completed. Therefore, in accordance with UDO requirements in NCGS 160D-949, the COA for the proposed demolition is approved with a 365-day delay.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner DeBerry. And Ms. Holmes, if we can have a roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner Dan,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Not approved.
Commissioner Kreger,
Opposed.
Commissioner Waiters.
Approved.
Motion passes 5-2.
Want to thank everyone for your patience. This was a tough one. There have been a number of tough ones recently, but we wish the parties well, and hopefully a resolution can be achieved and in relatively short order, so that we can revisit this and potentially shorten the period of time.
Thank you.
And with that, that is our final case on the agenda. We do have a bit of old business to which we need to attend, and that is our newsletter. Carla.
Yes, thanks very much to April and to Katie for creating this newsletter. I'm going to share it right now. I think you all received it via email. Hang on 1 second. All right. So we have the mailer for fall 2021, following our usual format, and then having some project highlights, some old cases that you may remember from the last couple of years, dealing specifically with accessory structures that were successfully adapted to new uses. So if everybody has had a chance to look it over, I'd love to entertain any feedback, corrections, or edits otherwise that you might have.
I like the version we're looking at that has the picture in the middle column, sort of in the middle, sort of offset from the picture at the top right, which I think was the earlier iteration. And I think it's great. I like the fact that we've got like action shots of a structure in transit. I think that's really neat. So I think it looks great, and want to commend everybody for your help with this. I mean, it looks terrific.
Yeah, they really did a fantastic job, and I think we're ready to distribute. If there aren't any other questions, well, actually, Tad, you did have a concern that there isn't specific mention of, you are receiving this because you live in a historic district or you own a landmark. So
right, I think if I got this in the mail and I didn't realize why I was getting it, I might toss it. So I just think it makes sense somewhere, maybe above the address or in the bottom left of the address panel or somewhere in there, to make it clear the reason you're getting this is because it affects you. You're in a district.
I wonder if that could be part of the addressee. Could every addressee have, property owner of a historic, basically say dear historic property owner and then their name underneath it?
Yeah, I mean, if that's possible, I think that makes the most sense.
And you can probably put it on the front too, right where it says right up under fall 2021 newsletter. Maybe some type of comment, somewhere where they can see it really, really well, that this pertains to you. You own a property in a local historic district or landmark or something like that. Let me see. Let's see. Or maybe somewhere. Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah, the way we used to do it was the question, did you know? But
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, we're just trying to get into maybe a sort of cleaner aesthetic and.
Because we do have people from time to time that come and they say, well, I didn't know I lived in a district,
Right.
or they've already accomplished some expensive repairs and we have to make them undo it. And I'd like to avoid that if possible.
I'd be in favor of some language that telegraphs why folks are receiving it.
Does anybody have any strong feelings about whether it should be done on the front cover or as part of the addressee label?
No strong feelings for me, just as long as it's there and that we can document that that we placed it there.
Why not both? It seems pretty important.
Okay.
I have a bold idea. Can we approve the nose letter with the addition of indicating why people are receiving it and delegate to staff how to make that happen? And build a lunch and go to our
Yeah. Second.
Third.
That sounds great.
All right, done.
Thank you to everyone that put it together. It looks great.
New business, minor COAs.
Yes, Terry has not sent that out yet, but she will send that out this week.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Carla, what are we looking at for next month? Busy docket?
I'm looking at 4 cases for next month.
And are any of those carryovers or continuances from prior months?
No, I don't
Okay.
believe, not from my recollection, no.
Okay.
So we don't have the Moorhead Hill one coming back?
Oh, wait. Yes, we do. So yes, that's a 5th one. 5th one.
We got 5. Guys, we were cruising along here after 3, and boy, we got bogged down in that last one. These applications seem to be getting harder and harder each month. I mean, this one was particularly tough with 7 different structures. But I tried to move things along as best I could. Not sure I succeeded.
Oh, you did a good job, Matt.
You did an awesome job.
You guys
I just have
absolute.
I just have a quick announcement. Preservation Durham is having its annual historic home tour, so you all are welcome. You can go to our website to purchase tickets, but the theme is the Tudor revival, and the featured property would be the Pinecrest Estate over there on West Forest Hills Boulevard, which is is that neighborhood? No, it's not a local historic district, I don't think. And so it will potentially soon be developed. So this is your last opportunity to take a look inside this property before it gets developed. So I hope to see you all there.
When was that again, April?
October 16th and 17th.
And information about it on the Preservation Durham website?
Yes, and the home tour and lecture will be on the 14th. One of the preservation consultants that we see regularly here will talk about the Tudor revival style in Durham.
Cool stuff. I live in a Tudor, although it's really kind of, I think, more colonial on the inside, but outside's Tudor.
I'd say thank you to Carla or to staff because they're doing a lot of all of the background and all of this dealing with much more than what we have to do all. So thanks.
Try to get things as presentable as possible, but obviously there's still going to be issues that come up.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, I think we've seen some themes here over the last several months. I mean, what is an acceptable ADU, both in terms of not being like just, cookie cutter, and having some uniqueness and being true to the neighborhoods and not being too humongous. And these demolitions. I mean, I think we're going to continue to struggle with that, and it probably makes sense that we do, because we're living in a vibrant, growing, changing city with lots of folks with lots of competing needs, and we just got to do the best we can. I thank everybody for your patience, your thoughts, and your hard work, and sticking in there, sticking with it.
Second that. Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, I do let applicants know when there's something that toes the line. I let them know you're towing the line with us.
Yep.
So
I know, I used to be on your end. We tell them everything and they'll come to a meeting and act as if, they think that the commission will think differently. We'll be on their side, and that's not always the case.
Carl, I know we've been in this for a long time today. So again, thank you for all you do. But my little side question, how was the retreat? Because I really did not want to miss that. How was the retreat?
Does somebody who attended want to share?
I mean, I thought it was helpful. To me, the process of, looking at our stock and revisiting the inclusion of, say, like mid-century modern structures into our historic neighborhoods, I think is a little bit more complicated than I was imagining it's going to be. But yeah, I thought it was helpful.
Because you want to share something, Laura? Uh-oh, she's just saying bye. That was what that was. And so we will have access to it for you all. I think it's going to be first via maybe a Google Drive. I'll check with our technology manager.
Would really appreciate it. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And then we also have a schedule to vote on, but we can do that at the next meeting. There's no rush on that. So for the 2022 schedule.
Great.
We do need to do it next month though, because the deadlines for January will be coming up soon.
Yeah, if Amanda or Terry could make sure that gets onto new business on our agenda, I'll make sure to remember it next month. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks everybody. Have a great Halloween, and see you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Go vote.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Go vote. Bye.